there any additions or corrections that any council would like to add?
There 8.2 for consideration. Permanent no parking and private property signs.
Are there any other additions or corrections to the agenda?
I guess maybe under 13, just the concern of the sewer rates and how that's going to get an update. It's been a little while. What was that? The sewer rates.
Sewer rates, okay. All right. Are there any other additions or corrections? Sewer rates. Hearing none, would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda with the additions of 8.2 and sewer rates under council?
So moved.
Motion by Kyle. Do I hear a second? Second by Dan. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, next we move on to public forum. This is an opportunity for citizens to present items to the council that are not on the agenda. Each presentation is limited to 3 minutes with a maximum 15 minutes set aside. If your item needs follow-up from the city, staff will arrange for that. If you'd like to step forward for public forum, please make your way to the podium, state your name and address, and council will hear your concerns. I will ask again if anybody would like to step forward for public forum. And I will ask for a third and final time if anybody would like to step forward for public forum. All right, hearing none, we will move on to the sheriff's update. So I'm here for a second, and then they must have had to run out. If our deputy comes back, maybe we will circle back to that one. Next up then would be the consent items. Someone like to make a motion to approve for any discussion? Motion by Dave to approve. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second by Dan. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Excuse me, motion carries. All right, next up, we will move on to item number 7.1, vacant council seat, letters of interest to the vacant council seat. Mark, do you want to have anything to throw at in here, top us away with this one, or?
No, we added both letters of interest in there for the residents and council to review.
All right, council discussion. Any questions, comments, concerns? I guess I have one thing that I would like to throw out there is a little bit of a change in thought for this whole situation. Being both Mr. Olson and Ms. Davis are running for the open council seats that are up this term, along with Mr. Hill. I'm wondering about council's thoughts of maybe the potential of appointing Ms. Rubinek to the vacant council seat, if she's the only mayoral candidate on the ticket right now. That would give her 5 months to get her feet wet and get the ground running for January. So I just wanted to throw that out there and capture any thoughts from council and go from there.
Well, I think we've determined in the last couple meetings that there really has been no precedent set. There is no policy on the books when we do that. We have done it different ways, and I've only been on 4 years, but I've seen it done many, many other different ways years and years before that. I think that's something I really recommend, that whether this council does it or whether the future council does it, but I think we need to really sit down when we organize and write up a policy or look at a policy, whether we have staff do that for us or whether we look it up ourselves. I think it would be kind of important. We know what the rules are. If there's a time frame long enough, we have to hold a special election, but we have no idea. I mean, there really isn't no set rules other than we were told we needed to fill the seat. So if we're told to fill the seat, then we need to fill the seat with whoever's on board. I think what it does give the voters is a chance to look at the candidates. You know, I mean, I can't step down to run, so I mean, I'm here, and the other two would be running, and that gives each of them an equal chance at the office. We know that there's a 99.99% chance that Mrs. Rubinek is going to be sitting here at some point. So that's kind of a given. And to get her feet wet, I think, I don't know if that's the right word, but I've never got my feet wet back here yet, but I did kick my water over a couple of times. So yeah, I like your idea. I think it would work.
If we're deviating from past practice, the last appointment that was filled was the mayoral seat. And at that time, it was council's will to get away from past practice of doing letters and applications to allow the will of the voters to speak. So I guess if we're deviating from that being the most recent past practice, what is our statement as a city why we're deviating from that past practice?
In my opinion, this is the most fair option going forward, as it doesn't give anybody that incumbent sticker along their name for the ballot for the two folks that are filing along with Mr. Hill. So we would have someone that is the sole applicant, and we're not giving a perceived leg up to either of the other two candidates. Yes, that's where I'm coming from. There's no guarantees in politics, but I think that with one applicant in the mayoral seat, that gives us the opportunity to not affect the council race, and it's not necessarily giving favoritism towards any individual.
I don't, for me, and then from day one, it's the past practice was the runner-up from the previous election. So to me, that was the decision that we were working on. Somehow we got steered off of that. I'm still not exactly sure why. So again, just the council that appointed the mayor when it was empty was very emphatic about getting away from the past practice that had been moved to a new practice, and that practice was like the election.
And I can say, as the one that was appointed in the last person to be appointed, I wasn't comfortable with the way I came into office. I wasn't. I'm glad that I was here. I'm glad that I got to get a 6-month head start. I wasn't really thrilled with the way it happened, and there was situations that I wasn't super thrilled about. Again, happy to be here, happy that I am here, but I think it definitely gave me a leg up towards my competition at the time of the election that I don't know was necessarily fair to those other applicants. But that's just my feeling as the one that was involved in it. And I think this is, though not a perfect solution, I could argue, but it is as close to possible as being a good solution as we can get, because there's a very good chance that Ms. Rubinek will be sitting here on January 1. And that makes this council, or gives this council, the opportunity to not specifically hand out that incumbent title or that favoritism, so to speak, towards any of the other folks that submitted a letter of application.
We need to open it back up potentially then, say maybe now that the elections have been filed for and there's somebody out there that says, I'm not running, but I've been paying attention, I would be able to fill in, or just for discussion at this just a discussion?
I think that is an option. I think essentially Adrian submitted her letter of interest when she paid her $2 and filed to run for office too. So that's, if you're in it in January, I think you're in it now, I would say. So I guess that's kind of my thought process on the situation. We're not giving a leg up to anybody else. We're giving a leg up to the one person that is signed up to throw their hat in the ring for the mayoral seat. So that gives her 6 months to prepare. That being said, there could be a write-in vote. There could be something that happens. It's politics. You never know how it's going to end up. But I feel a lot more comfortable with that situation than pointing my finger at either of the other two folks that are on the ballot with 3 people on the ballot for 2 open seats. That just adds a little bit of discomfort to my.
Well, I think, Dan, that we had the chance at that time when we were going through that to set a policy. We never did it. There was a lot of other things that were on the table at the time. We had a lot of chaos going on coming out of our last administration change. I think we were up to our elbows in about, I don't know how much waste, fraud, and abuse that we straightened out. I think there was so much going on, and there were so many changes that we were making that just got left by the wayside. Should we have dealt with it? Maybe. But there's only so many things you can do in a day. So I think that's why I really truly believe, whether it's this council or the next council, they need to deal with this and set a policy. And whether another council in the future changes that, so be it. But we made decisions before. Every council is going to make a different one. I don't see where we went way off too far. I think we ended up with a really good choice here. And yeah, did it give him an advantage? Maybe. It's everybody's opinion. When you get to the candidates forum, you can see who you want to vote for, or read the paper and see what everybody's thoughts are and what their ambitions are. So I support what you're saying. I think it's a good idea, and I think it would take care of the interim, and then the voters can pick out of the 3 of us who they want sitting up.
Well, you definitely threw me through a loop for that proposal. I like the proposal. I think it does have a favorable outcome. My concern is that we did go the whole summer with getting a letter of intent, and both Anthony and Molly have been with us through the whole summer. And now we're kind of deviating away from that plan. So if we are going to go that direction, I like Mr. Hill's idea of coming up with a policy, because I don't want to string anybody along for 3 months or 6 months, only to flip the schedule at the last minute and change it up a little bit.
100%.
But it is a very favorable option in my mind, what you propose.
So how would we like to proceed? Can we add a building that policy? Can we come up with a draft policy to have at the
Yeah,
next?
we've actually looked at other cities who have, there's 45-day window. You need to fill the seat in 45 days, and we could build something that does have specific timelines too.
The 45-day window, is that in their policy or is that in the state?
No, that's just in other cities.
Yeah.
But there are cities that have this in place already. We could model something like that.
But the state statute says that you're supposed to fill it before the end of the term, I believe,
Well,
if it's less than 2 years.
yeah.
And the only reason I bring that up is during the first time when I stepped down, I don't think that the council filled that position before the end of the year because the window was short. So if that 45 days is less than that period, does that get us into trouble with state statute? So having that time frame in there is a little bit concerning, but I like having a consistent policy that anybody applying for the position knows what they're getting into.
And I don't disagree, because I think I've seen or been a part of 3 or 4 appointments, and they've all gone a little differently. Every one of them was a little bit different, whether that's positive or negative. You're never gonna. You can do your best, but I don't. But there's a point where I feel like you're never going to actually encompass all of the possibilities of a vacancy. How that happens, when that happens, and state statute kind of lays the groundwork of saying there's more than half the term remaining, it's special election. If there's less than half the term remaining, council shall appoint.
We can't have an
But I think having a policy in place is important for the future to make sure that it's not against your best situation.
I would agree, and I would hope from before I was elected till this moment in time that policy should lean heavily on previous election results. Because a lot of, in my mind, if it's not a special election, that's the closest thing to a special election. Because you're right, you read back through the annals of Pine City history, every time that there's been one of these, it's been have the right family friendly advocate. So be able to try to get out of that.
It's been interesting.
Interesting. There we go. Perfect.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? Ms. Davis, you have a.
Yeah, can I just say something? And Mr. Olson doesn't want to feel the same as me here, but I feel healthy competition is great regardless of who's sitting up there to fill an appointment. Just for the record, I think citizens are going to pick who they want representing them regardless of who's up there at the time of the election. And candidate forums are going to speak, their campaigns are going to. Just for the record, I mean, I got faith the citizens, no matter who's up there, is going to vote who they want there.
Thank you. Any other comments from council or thoughts from moving forward?
Need to move forward.
All right. Would anybody like to make a motion? Otherwise,
I'll make a motion that we fill a seat with Adrian Rubeck if she's willing to do it.
I was gonna say, has anybody talked to Ms. Rubeck if she's willing to do it before?
Well, she's
we
obviously
make the motion?
His eye.
No, I know, but that sounds like maybe there was some conversations had before this meeting.
I never talked to Ms. Rubeck
But
before.
to make sure that she was okay with this, or
Did I talk to you, Ms. Rubeck, before this meeting?
No.
Okay.
I will say I had a conversation with her this morning or this afternoon and asked her
Not in person. He texted while I was at the swimming beach
that is fair.
fishing.
Fishing.
I'm willing either way.
All
I
right.
won't have hurt feelings either way.
But I want to add to that motion too, just not just with appointing her, that we ask staff to bring back to the next council meeting examples for us to look at to replace to place a policy in place so that we can, so we show that we really want to change this. And I think we do.
The next council meeting, I believe, has the budget
Correct.
in it. Is that gonna be a long meeting where the policy is gonna get kind of faded, or is it something that,
September
options could be provided to us to look over for the first?
I think just the options to look at to start with. I mean,
Let's
I
just
think
do
we,
that. We'll try to get like at least 3 or 4 on there so you can review them.
Yeah. we should start anyway. Whether we have a lot of time to spend on it or not, but we start. So that's my motion.
All right, we've got a motion from Dave to appoint Adrian and begin the groundwork for starting a policy for future appointment processes. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second by Dan. Any further discussion?
I do have a question. When is the expected swearing in gonna occur? Is that now, or is that later?
I think it could happen at any point in time.
Tomorrow even.
Can we add it to the special meeting, or?
No, we shouldn't.
As
Yeah.
we post.
I don't remember because I was sworn in at City Hall when we got back from our Grand Canyon trip. So that was just, Nina was there, Mercy was there,
The paper.
Paper was there. It was a pretty quick in and out. It was right before a Parks and Rec meeting.
Oh, I believe you are correct.
So I just mean if it's gonna occur, we should probably designate a time for swearing in or a day at least.
We have a special council meeting tomorrow night at 5:30.
That give you sufficient posting time.
We already posted for that, the special.
No, but I mean for the
We
swearing.
don't have to post for the swearing in.
Well, if we don't have to. post.
If Adrian's sworn in before, she could participate, and if she's sworn in after, she wouldn't be able to participate as a, council.
But we have a 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, though.
I was gonna say, I have time during the day tomorrow. This is,
7 o'clock tomorrow.
be back in town by
I,
Oh,
with the, like, 5 minutes.
yeah,
I didn't know if you wanted to be sworn in before the meeting or after the meeting kind of thing, or if you wanted to participate in tomorrow's meeting, if you go that route. That is your choice, not mine.
What's the meeting about tomorrow night?
it's a special meeting for code of conduct, open,
I can't
Open
open tomorrow night anyway.
oh, okay,
The 6th, I can't do it.
okay.
Be leaving. I won't be here tomorrow. So it doesn't matter if I do it tomorrow,
Okay,
because I can't do it.
What about Friday? At a time with her on Friday?
First season. How many people are there?
65, 70.
You have to make donuts for at
with
least 2
Kent,
months.
I think it was 4. I mean, it was very impromptu. I think Paper was there, Gina.
I guess my only other devil's advocate in there is that should we do it before the next regular council meeting so that it can be publicly recorded? for the good of the
Just over
people?
the next,
Yeah.
and what date is that? I don't
that
know.
would be
2 weeks.
2 weeks from today.
Is it the 19th?
Work, 7, 11,
August
18.
August 19th.
19.
All right.
But before that, there's no big rush, is there? We created this one.
Perfect. We'll hammer out those details before the next council meeting. We can,
The quicker we get you sworn in, the quicker we can give you information to look at to study. That's why it's important.
August 19th is just
Well, all the information is public information, isn't it?
Well, should be. But it gives her a little more flexibility in figuring things out.
truly, I want to visit with people without feeling like I'm anybody other than Adrian. And the name tags would give me time to do that. I want to visit with people when I'm nothing. It's me. No title people.
perfect. All right. We've got a motion from Dave to appoint Adrian and start building a policy for future appointments. That was seconded by Dan. Do we have any other discussion?
We want to put a completion on the policy or just
Completed by
quarter 1 of 27 or
sure.
It's up to the
I'll
person.
have that. That's fine. That's a good idea, Dan. So we stick with it. It's a good idea.
Completed by Q1 27. All right. Are you still okay with your second to that motion?
I am, thank you.
All right. We got a motion and a second to appoint Adrian and build a policy for future appointments, completed by Q1 of 27. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Marcy, does this have to be a roll call or can this be a at-large vote?
Might be a good roll call for the good of the people.
We'll just roll call it.
Yeah, there's no harm in roll calling.
Okay. All right, Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Dave?
Yes.
Dan?
Aye.
And I will also vote yes, that motion carries. Thank you, everybody. All right, we do have our deputy here. Let's backtrack to item number 5.1 here on our agenda so that we can get our short support.
I don't really have a whole lot of info. Post fair. Just a reminder for the public that any self-propelled vehicle is considered for DWI. So if you think that you're going ride in a self-propelled e-bike or scooter to get away from having to get caught drunk driving, that's still considered a self-propelled vehicle. So just a little precaution for the public who thinks they're being safe riding one of those. So
That would extend out to golf carts, I would think.
any self-propelled, yeah, and especially with the movement with all this electronic bikes and all that stuff, it still all applies. So
And what about open containers as a passenger on those?
open containers on them.
Yep.
I didn't look into that, but I don't see why not. You know, if they got an open container, or at least it's open container on public and non-permitted zones or whatever that could be too. But it's more precaution for DWI. If they have an open container, I'm sure we can look into it. I'll see why it wouldn't apply, considering it's out in the public and a self-propelled vehicle. So
I ask, and these conversations may be happening at the staff level, so if there, has there been any discussion from your department about e-bike and e-device enforcement with helmet laws and things that are coming online? Second part of that question is, they
I've
are?
been in contact with
So-
a couple of the deputies on this.
Then I'll be quiet.
There's a couple girls that travel from 9th Street, about 600 in the middle of the block, to the beach, back and forth several times a day. And one sits on the back fender and the other one drives. They don't stop for stop signs. I'm just really waiting for them to crash. Because there's people that go up 10th Street, they don't stop.
Yep.
And they go right through that stop sign, and we're gonna have a tragedy here. I keep saying that, and it's gonna happen. It's horrible, but it's gonna happen. And so whatever enforcement you can do, you know, stop them, talk to them. I know you're doing that. But we can't do it enough because it's out of control right now.
yep, and that's why I brought up the e-bike with the DWI, because most of the people that are violating the laws with it are underage and they're not valid to even be driving in the first place. So we stop people all the time, especially the kids that fly through parking lots, and eventually it's going to turn into seizing their bike until a parent's contacted. They can get it back. Got all those citations too for violating it too, but we're trying to kind of do a soft approach right now instead of just taking everybody's e-bikes and citing parents and making them pay for it. So,
Well,
Just a public plea to the parents and
Yeah.
people in young people's lives in our community. Please talk to your kids about the importance of helmets, and that 10 miles an hour on an e-bike and no helmet can cause catastrophic, life-changing differences. So please.
and just for an update too, you're required to be 15 years old, regardless of permit or driver's license.
Oh,
You got to have a helmet. You can't have more than one passenger on it, and you still have to stop and use signals if you're near the roadway, like on the shoulder. So a lot of those same biking and motor vehicle rules apply, like if you're to have like an ATV or a UTV. So like I said, most of the people that are violating that the requirement are underage anyways. So a lot of the people that are, I don't really see honestly a lot of adults on it, but we don't really have any complaints over anybody that's legally able to drive it anyways.
So that brings up a good point. At a past council meeting, we talked about enforcing at 16 or above for having to have a license. If it's already in place, then why would we worry about having a specialized ordinance that's less restrictive than what the state requirement is?
Yeah. Like I said, I don't see much. I'm sure there's 16-year-olds out there and stuff that are violating other moving laws, but I think the thing that the public gets mixed up is that people are allowed to drive like off-road vehicles on the streets in Pine City, and I think they kind of if they're not looked into it, they kind of think, oh, e-bike, well, I can drive that, which is not the case either. But there's state laws that have to be followed as well, not just city ordinance. So I can't say anything on the city ordinance, but like I said, most of these kids are being stopped. And if it gets to the point, like I know who you're talking about, if it gets to the point where they're not listening and we see them re-violate, then we're just gonna have to hold the bike till we can contact the parent.
Going back to the UTVs and stuff, because I see a lot of those on the streets. There's a couple that go down 10th Street on a regular basis,
Mhm.
way too fast. But the bottom line is, what I understand, you have to have your headlights on, first of all. You have to ride the shoulder closest you can to the shoulder of the road. And you have to obey all traffic laws. And even when you're going down 61, or down Main Street, or whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
you have to ride as close as you can to the shoulder. That's what I've been told. Is that what you understand, or?
In the city limits, it's a little different. A lot of these people are driving on the main street of it.
Yeah.
And even for the shoulder, you're still required to use hand signals. You're supposed to stop at stop signs. And just remember that city ordinance doesn't trump state law, so you
Right.
still need public use registration and insurance if you're gonna be flying around on UTV.
Right.
Which there are a lot of public use registrations, and we've had DNR do some extra enforcement. So they're around stopping, but there's a lot of people who just, and they don't know.
Right.
They don't know, but there's a lot of people that see that these vehicles are authorized through ordinance and they think that's good. But if you crash and you don't have insurance, then your driver's license gets revoked and you get tagged with all those too because you're driving on a public roadway.
Right. Kids under the age of 15 have to have helmets, right?
You have to be 15 to ride the e-bike.
No, but on the UTV.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And they have to wear helmets.
Yep.
The adult doesn't have to if they don't
No.
want to, but the kid has to.
I thought on UTVs, you had to be 16 or provide or possess a valid driver's license to be able to operate it on a
To operate.
city
Yeah,
road.
to operate, yes.
Okay.
But if they're like a passenger on a
Yeah.
four-wheeler or
Side by side.
side by side.
Perfect. Any other questions or comments for deputy?
Have you guys been doing many water patrols at all?
Not me personally, but we have people that are certified through it, but I guess I wouldn't have the information on that. I don't really look into it, but I know DNR, they got a new DNR guy and they've been around a lot, but I'm not sure on the Pine County shifts because they usually get pushed out through like overtime or extra shifts that are available. And I don't keep track of that. So I would,
I guess I only bring it up because kids and not wearing life jackets seems to be very prominent this year.
Mhm.
Past that wasn't always the case, and if we're talking about safety for children, that's one thing to throw out there.
I'd have to contact someone who gets paid a little more than me to look at the shift with all that. I guess I don't have any paperwork or anything on it. I can get an email or something sent out if they got shifts or what shifts they had, but
Any other questions or comments?
Appreciate the information.
yep, no,
Thanks. Thanks for being here.
no problem.
Thank you.
Have a safe one.
All right, I'll fast forward ahead a little bit here and move on to item number 7.2, Rummerford Consultants and Andy Schrader. Marcy, you want to?
Yeah, they're here to, unfortunately, last week we tabled last meeting, we tabled a couple items. So we brought this back with the hopes of scheduling a work session to go over the fee schedules where there's been some noted concerns. They'd like to sit down and discuss this with council one-on-one. And they've given some dates of what would work for them. So August 19th before the council meeting was an option. August 24th after 4:30, September 1 after 5, September 9 after 3, September 16 after 3.
You gotta start over.
Okay.
You're way faster than my pen.
All right, I apologize.
That's okay.
So you have August 19th before council, August 24 after 4:30, September 1 after 5, September 9 after 3 p.m., September 16 after 3.
All right.
Never happens.
It's like, it looks like a tag on Mahjong board other than that, those slides.
So far, the 19th of August before the council meeting, or the 16th after 5, otherwise I'm in the Mayo Clinic the rest of the time with my wife. Would have to be those two.
What you were that day? Sorry, one more time. 19.
19th before the council meeting, or the 16th of September is the only 2 days of the dates that I have open. The rest I'll be at the Mayo Clinic with my wife.
What time before the council meeting on the 19th?
They said after 3, so it could be,
Gonna be like a 3-hour discussion
No.
or 1-hour
I
discussion?
feel like
or-
1 hour would be,
I'm gonna guess two. There's been a lot of good questions asked, and I'd like to go through our contract in detail for the services that we've, especially when we start getting into delegated plumbing and building. I think that deserves a more in-depth conversation, so I'm gonna guess two. Say no more.
We did provide evening times if there was a interest in doing the day. Look at our calendar. Evening would be better for you all.
My case, it doesn't matter, but with these guys, it does.
I can make,
I can make the 19th work.
I'm
Well,
like 90% sure I'm just gonna take it off, so.
The 19th before the council meeting, at what time? Then 3:30? Because
okay,
it's 5:30 is the council meeting, so
okay.
Maybe we should say 3
3, and
in
then
the event that we need to take a little breather from each other for a half hour.
And you're splitting me in that day.
I mean, you might wanna get sworn in before we're on there.
Like your last step, or-
Okay, so we'll put that down at 3 o'clock at night.
August 19th
Okay.
at 3 o'clock.
I can. I'll be there. Okay, great, thank you. Did you have any other things you want to talk about, or what are we, that was it? Okay, perfect.
Perfect. All right,
Then
just
next,
reading
7.3.
calendar
Did you
on
swear me in at 2:30?
I mean, we can even do it prior to that, like another day.
No, let's do the 19th at 2:30. Because then you'll be there at 3. And
Are we gonna have a special meeting at 3 o'clock after Rum River? We're gonna have to notice it as a special meeting.
We'll notice it as a work session, which is open.
So can we add the swearing in before we discuss Rum River? No, I mean
Well, no,
3,
we could do
just so
3.
it's all,
'Cause
then it's all recorded under the same meeting, if that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just thought.
All right, moving on, then we will move on to item number 7.3, council salary.
This was to, I believe Melanie like broadened, council requested, a little more, research into other cities, and so she dug deep and found, multiple cities for the council to review.
I definitely appreciate the deep diving on this one.
Yeah.
We had a lot of questions after the last meeting.
I think it made sense, and a lot of them are very comparable, which is really
mhm.
nice.
Yeah, she did a great job.
I just,
I still like the idea of just having it, the monthly salary rather than having any kind of per diem or additional fees or anything of that added in, and just raising up the amount to keep it clean and to keep it easy and not be stacking up a bunch of council members trying to have a bunch of committee meetings or something.
well, and like staff expressed that each one of us has to fill out a piece of paperwork request for $25 times 5 times however many committees. I mean,
And
it's
you're
just,
spending more than $25 to cut a $25 check.
right.
Is how my logical brain works. And I'm not opposed to per diem. But I can absolutely see that could add more workload to our staff.
I think the important thing of this whole thing, and it's, when I got on the council, I had no idea what the wages were for the council. And when I got my first check, I asked them what it was for, and they told me, and I said, "There's no, you got paid." And it was, but my whole point was, and I tried to do it 2 years ago because you have to do it prior to an election. You're not going to get anybody that has to pay daycare and stuff to come in and do this stuff. Anybody that thinks this job is 9 to 5 and you don't have a lot to do, well, you're doing it 24/7. And there's a lot of research that has to be done. And there's many hours put into this, along with a lot of driving. I go to Hinckley, I go to the townships, I go to a lot of different places, and never turn in. I know I can turn in mileage, but I never do that. It's just a lot of hassle with this paperwork you're talking about. So I'd like to see something that might entice younger people to want to do this job. When you retire, it's a little bit different. But if you got a full-time job, and I think our mayor can attest to that, with a new child, it's not very easy, and we need to compensate fairly for what the hours that you put in, and I'd like to see, I would concede the per diem. We had per diem for as long as I can remember, 30 years or better. They were getting per diem, but we need to put a cost of living increase in there so that other councils in the future don't have to deal with this. Just put a cost of living increase in there and just get it over with. And that'll take care of the problem for years to come.
Well, I want to leave the option up to future council members to decide if they want to make the raise or not. That should be taken in effect at the time. The other risk I worry about the cost of living is I see some things in here like $4,319.90. It'd be kind of nice just to have a very clean increase with very flat numbers, not weird change in there for accounting issues.
No, you could put numbers in there to correct that. I understand what you're saying on that, but and future councils can throw it all out completely if they wanted to, just like the last one did. When our previous mayor decided that we didn't need him and stuff, and it could change anyway. So it just puts a little base to it. So, and it's kind of like picking the empty council seat. We're accomplishing something, getting something on books, just like we've done with all these things that we've never kept track of, that our staff is doing a great job of keeping track of now. These contracts and things that we should have been reviewed annually that weren't getting done, and now they're getting done, and things are running a lot smoother that way. So it's just something that's done, and we don't have to go back and look at it, because I think every month we get enough to look at. I don't think we want to worry about that again. And it's not about the money. Anybody that thinks it's about the money in this job needs to step up and do the job. They'll find out it's not about the money, because it is. We all do this because we want to help the public. I've done this for many years as a volunteer fireman and on as a council member, for fire marshal and council member, and it's you do a lot of stuff on your own time.
I do, and I have since the candidates were announced. I have had that question burning in my head. Are there people in our community that made the decision not to run based on there not being enough in the kitty, if you will, for them to do the things they would need to do to give to public service, daycare, meals out, extra fuel costs? It has been in my head. Are there people in our community that made that decision? Because again, like you said, it's not about money, and any of these increases that we are considering aren't monumental increases. Nobody's getting rich, but I agree with Mr. Hill. And by the time you pay for toner and pencil lead and paper and things, it gets to be a lot. It can get to be a lot.
I think one of the major concerns that I had heard over the years was the timing of the meetings. We used to have day meetings, and I know not everybody works during the day. There does seem to be a lot of people that work during the day, and the evening meetings make it a little bit easier for people in the working environment to be able to attend those meetings. I do also know that there's a concern with all the committee meetings that happen during the day, and there's a lot of individuals that are working that can't make those committee meetings. And it kind of goes back to my question that we kind of alluded to in past council meetings, is should the council be present at committee meetings, because they run the risk of influencing the committee based off of their decisions. There should truly be community committee meeting that makes a recommendation for the council to come back and have a discussion. And I really worry that the council is going to influence how the committee votes because they're looking at objectives that are important to them. And that might not be what we're looking for at the council level. The council always has the right to be able to throw out anything that the committee comes up with, but I don't want to unduly influence it.
I think we've changed some of that with, you know, I stepped down as public works committee chairman. They haven't stepped down the planning committee. I believe that it's good to have just a citizen running the meeting. I mean, because then it's not as intimidating and we get better ideas. And of course, we also changed how the committees gets what they work on. It shouldn't come from the committees, strictly from the committees. It needs to come from complaints and from requests. And that's what we've changed or gradually changed over the last year. And I think it's working.
I think it's important to keep council members on the committees because you're the ones that get to make the decision at the end of the day. But with council members, you can help steer the conversation. And I don't mean steer the conversation towards the goal you're looking for, but we deal with this policy. At the end of the day, we're the ones that are responsible for writing and ratifying and all that kind of fun stuff with all these policies. So if it's something that's coming up with a zoning change or a policy like that, without a council member there, you may not have the same knowledge, or that you might get different bits and pieces. I've gotten things from our citizen representatives on planning commissioner, EDA or HRA that I'm thinking one way, but they're thinking a completely different way. So I think both instances, I think it's important that we have council members on the boards, because I would say, like, of the boards that I don't sit on, Parks and Rec, for example, I don't really have, other than when we get an update from the Parks and Rec director, I don't know the daily operations or how the meeting went, other than just getting a quick update during a council meeting. So I think it's important that, personally think it's important that council members are involved in, at least in some way, in the committee process.
I think there's some, like HRA, EDA planning, that there's state statute that there has to be counselors on those three.
Some of those.
But I agree with you. Even before I was elected, till having been elected, the committees that I do sit on, it's hard for me, but I do try to sit back a little bit more. I mean, sans planning, to be more of an advisory, if I can. That's my goal anyway. It doesn't always work out that way. But they're for reference and resource, like Ken said. And I also think sometimes having the presence of a counselor there, or maybe a question comes up that maybe somebody that is a volunteer is, or maybe even a staff member that is there is comfortable with answering, that counselor can be that net to help answer that. But I do agree, less is more in this case.
But cycling back to the task at hand, I think money can be an incentive, but I think we also have to look at when those meetings occur. And a lot of those daytime meetings, are we getting a younger crowd that you're trying to target for council? Is it individuals that are burning through PTO? Like Mr. Mayor, are you burning through PTO on those early meetings, or?
It's either PTO or I'm flexing my time. So it's something that I've worked out, but it's not an ideal situation. But it's kind of a, for me, and I'll say personally, it's kind of a 6 of one, half dozen the other. So it's either with a nighttime meeting, spending more time away from my family. At a daytime meeting, I'm taking PTO. So it's kind of a balance of what I can do with that day and what I can do at that point in time, and figure it out and roll with it. So at least that's how I've been going for the past 2.5 years.
Well, and I think with the new technology and it can be online, that's been a big, and this has only been since we got our IT straightened out, or the staff got our IT straightened out. It wasn't us. You kind of. But yeah, so I mean that's really helped, and that's changed for all of us. I mean, when my wife had a liver transplant, I was online And I should have been on more, but we couldn't get it to work exactly right at first. I was there at the meetings, but they couldn't hear me. But, it was pretty cool that I could sit down in a hotel room in Rochester and conduct meetings. And it worked just fine. It was great visual and great, audio. And that ability to do that, you know, allows people that maybe want to go south in the winter and leave for a month or two can do that. And that's, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we should be a little flexible.
But I think just kind of going back to the point is if we're going to try and incentivize people to come in that are younger and look at childcare or other options, that's a significant increase in my mind. Are there other ways that we could use to incentivize those individuals to come in and join council, or is money the only one here? Because I don't know, if we raise it to $10,000, would you still get a lot of people? I know there'd be a lot of people angry with me that we gave ourselves that kind of a raise, but
Well, I don't think anybody's insinuating that. I'm just thinking there hasn't been any raises for how many years? I mean, it's, from what I understand.
at least once in the last 4 years, because 2 years after I got on, we got a raise.
Okay, that would have been 6, 7 years ago.
Would have been
It had to be
4 years ago.
2 years.
Well, I've only been on for 6
4.
years.
Okay.
So
I hate to take it back to staff again, but do you want to see if there's any other benefits that other cities offer to their council members other than just money compensation, or is that,
I would be cautious about other benefits
I hate
for
to call it
council.
benefits,
Yeah.
but if there's,
Money's clean,
yeah,
but I think we should realistically come up with a number, whether that's $100 or $200, and put that in the budget as a max, and then when we hash out the budget, we'll see where we go. We might have to cut somewhere, and that might be the place that we cut.
Well, I thought the easiest one to pick was Mora, Minnesota. Mora is $1,000 higher than we are. Of course, they have per diem too, and if we don't take the per diem, we're just taking $1,000 raise for the mayor and the council. And that's an annual pay. That's not. That's annual, so that breaks down pretty fine when you go by the month. So I would think at least we stand current with those. There's other cities that are comparable as to ours that are $2,000-3,000 higher, but I think it's a start. And the next council that could look at that too, and maybe, you know, help bring it up to, because I think it is. I think it has to do with having extra money to pay for childcare and other things that young people might need. You know, even if they've got kids at home, they're going to have to maybe buy meals out and everything else just because they're on the council. We know how many hours we spend here,
So I'll agree. I mean, I guess I would propose that we adopt Mora's stipend of 5,000 for mayor and 4,000 for council members, however that breaks down per monthly meetings or attendance, and put that in the budget as something to review when we get into our budget.
so then we're not necessarily making a decision right away, and it's something that we've got to cut out of the budget to make
It's an easy cut.
and ends meet, and that's getting us kicked down the road for.
But to that proposal, I don't want to have any, just
no,
a higher
I
stipend.
said we get rid of it. If it's that much paperwork, then it isn't worth the hassle. But
So I guess I'll make that motion to propose the increase to 5,000 per mayorship and 4,000 to council members. Is a proposal to be reviewed in the budget.
Right. Got a motion from Kyle to propose an increase to 5,000 for the mayor's compensation, 4,000 for council's compensation, to be looked at during the budget. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Dan. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
And just a note on that Nicole pointed out, this would be something that goes to public hearing because it's an ordinance.
All right, next up, moving on to new business, item number 8.1, schedule 2027 truth and taxation meeting date and time.
Just trying to be a little ahead of the schedule. This is the sheet we get from the county and we fill it out for when they publish our truth and taxation date. So I thought we could get that scheduled. If we have, would we like it to be on that last September meeting? We have until the 30th to file this. So our second council meeting is the 23rd of September, or we could do it anytime before the 30th.
Would there be any reason after truth and taxation that we might want time to crunch the numbers before we set the budget in September 30th?
This is just the preliminary.
Right.
This is for presentation. They were wanting.
Set the date.
Oh, this is for the final, oh, sorry, I totally misspoke.
All right, that's why.
Thank you. Thank you. This is for the actual, which we usually do the first meeting in December. Thank you, Nicole.
If we've done it the first meeting in December in the past, I think that makes sense to continue doing it.
2 years ago, we did it at the court, the county building, but then last year we had it here. It seemed to go fine.
Do we have enough seating, or do we have a flow in the fire
We
hall?
did not have a well,
No, we were ready. Remember, we had
We were
people
ready.
over at 3:15,
Yeah.
direct the traffic in case people showed up.
Yes. Yeah, we were ready.
So I would make the motion that we continue with tradition and set truth and taxation for the first meeting in December, to be held here at, the library with overflow possibilities in the fire hall.
All right, motion from Kyle. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second from Dan. Holding the truth and taxation meeting at the first city council meeting in December at the library with overflow available at the fire hall.
I think we have to have it at 6 o'clock, so we could have our meeting.
Okay, I will include that 6 o'clock time for truth and taxation in my meeting if I can amend it.
Perfect. Dan, are you still okay being second? Perfect. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right,
Thank
next
you.
up, 8.2, permanent no parking and private property signs.
Again, staff stop me if you're already working on it, but Fire and Life, Public Works, Planning, thank you for this last round of educating people on where railroad right of way is and where people can park and where they can't park. And I'm wondering, is there a way for us as a city to contact BNSF or Great Northern, whoever owns that, and maybe, like I said, might be working on it already, but can we get permanent signage that says BNSF property, no parking, that can go on?
We've
That's it.
asked them to do that
We would love for them to do that.
and
They would
we
like
got
us to do it.
shot down on it pretty hard. They said if and when they come through, they'll just start getting license plates and towing. But I don't really know how to,
And we can't post that for them? Or they would like us to, or they? want
I
us to
don't know
post
if that would be considered
Their property.
right.
Yeah,
If they're okay with that proposal, then I don't think that we should go through the hassle of policing it. If we've done the due diligence, at this point, it was an educational piece, and going forward, it's kind of a live and learn kind of thing. If your vehicle's not there, when you come back out to it, you learn your lesson.
Right. My whole thing is they don't come through very often and the conductors won't. It's only one specific guy and it sounds like he comes through maybe once a month, and which is not on an event day.
And it's become a challenge now. I've heard that from several people in
Yeah.
the committee. It's a challenge, like,
That
game on, I'm parking here. I'm setting
right
up
across from
benches.
Robinson was pretty
Yeah.
full on parade day. They stayed out of the other areas, but parade day was, and we've done our due diligence in letting like Art Fest and them know, like, hey, just make sure there's nobody parking here, but
Well, for me, I guess it was just more like, this isn't the city asking, like, this isn't a property that's owned by the city. This is property that's owned by the railroad, and these are their rules, and, you know, if that's
Right.
right there, we could, but it's not.
right, I just,
I guess as long as we're talking about permanent parking, I believe at least one space inside city limits has its own special designation for parking, in front of a establishment, and I wonder, did we grant that ability for only that type of parking on a public street, or was that just a self-appointment for that location?
we've kind of looked into that one back and forth. Even at Beacon, we went and looked back at the 2018 parking, how it is. I'm assuming we're discussing the same establishment. That was kind of self-appointed, but if you look at both ends of that, both roads are that way. So why essentially would it stop on one road in between when both roads are parked that way?
Yeah, I wonder if we should review permanent parking, because I think there are establishments that would like to designate public parking in front of their locations as their own personal locations, and it's city-owned property, so.
I mean, I'm willing and open to having the discussion on these two, at least the two streets of why they are the way they are, because I'll be honest, I don't have the history of it, and they've been that way at least my whole life of being here. Minus the one that was just recent.
It would be kind of nice to get our ducks in a row, so it's not just assumed that it belongs to the establishment. Yes.
Their central business district does not require parking.
If that's something that should bounce through planning first before it comes, when we look at parking at something. Not
We
bad.
changed the ordinance, but this is kind of an establishment that's self-parked. And it's kind of been a little frustrating in some aspects.
I don't know, we just had permanent parking on here, so I figured it'd be an opportunity to talk about it. Maybe it's a planning and ordinance thing to think of. Maybe we have special requirements or policies in place to designate special parking, but I know at least one on county came and asked us, but that was designated as 2-hour parking during business hours, but the council granted, so.
Yeah, let's and staff make that determination to where it should start off, if it comes back to us here directly, or if it goes to.
I would ask that it came back here because it kind of came up in planning and then
Go anywhere.
not know,
So you need to identify all these locations and then have a discussion.
probably.
Is that a motion?
Yes, I will make the motion that we identify locations that have, been inferred that it's private parking solely for that establishment, be reviewed by the council.
I'll second.
Right, I've got a motion from Kyle to identify locations, or
On public streets.
on public streets where that parking is perceived as in front of or for that business only.
Correct.
Uh,
But that establishment,
establishment.
can be residential or,
Just bring a memo back for all the areas that I know of the issues.
Oh, right, and we've got a second from Dave. Do we have any further discussion?
Is that also gonna include, this yellow striping that we had questioned by a few people in town? Some of the corners and some of the, stripes on each set of driveway entrances and stuff is. And when you were out painting, Jason, I'll throw it back to you then, did you run into anything that you thought was probably right, wrong, or in between?
Couple of them I asked why they're there, and Matt gave me some history lessons. But none that I thought couldn't be a safety concern.
Okay, Cause I know you like history, cause I always give you that.
I know of
Touche, huh?
I know of one situation, which was by the ramp by the Coke plant, that was asked to be painted yellow on the opposite side of the driveway, as no parking. However, without it being signed, is what the sheriff told us, is that it could not be enforced as no parking. So I believe that signage is required for any kind of yellow striping or red striping. Because that's what was explained to us for enforcement. We could probably paint all sorts of colors, but without signage, I don't know if we can.
Well, it doesn't apply to fire hydrants and that, because, you know, they have no sign saying you're not supposed to park in front of one.
They might not have a window to come back to, but
The color, well, that's another story, but the color does, tell them that so there are instances where that doesn't apply.
All right, we have a motion by Kyle and a second by Dave. To identify locations where public parking is perceived as private parking. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right, next up, we'll move on to department reports. Does anybody have any questions about the department reports?
I saw it in the Fire and Life. I don't know if I saw it anywhere else, but how is the See It, Click It, Fix It going with everybody? I
think
might
it's
have
going
butchered that, but
See, click, fix.
See, Click, Fix.
I think it's going, it works well for me.
Does the rest of the staff enjoy it too? I just want to get positive feedback. Every time we go to a new software program, I never know if it works because I don't try it, but might have tried it a few times.
And it's one word. That's the branding of it. See, click, fix, one word.
Well, I got one word for it. I can't do it. But I did get on it, and then all of a sudden it doesn't like me anymore. So I'm gonna go get training from staff. So I'm okay. I'm not very IT. We'll get there. I will get training, but at first I thought, well, geez, I got this, and I didn't even have to go in and ask them. So but that didn't last very long.
In fact, before we even ordered it, council had requested that we do like an update report on this. So we'll get, now that we kind of have it slightly oiled wheel, we'll bring that back as like a report monthly, maybe for you guys to look at.
Because this has been in, C-Click Fix has been in place for
A few months.
Since May 1st.
since May. Okay, we should have some goodish data to start.
Yeah.
And the Fire and Life too, Adam, I saw the fire department pre-plan thing. Can you spend 90 seconds? Like how does that go? And like the impact that has on firefighters. What can a pre-plan do as far as saving seconds in a situation like that?
So I contacted them, and what I'm doing is virtually placing a fire department walkthrough that we would do with online. It's just me going with the packet that I fill out. Key holder information, areas of salvage stuff that they would want saved, fire, that we could get through the same thing. And then I document hazard. Building. Year 36, document. Pull everything together and make a PowerPoint. Because of our drill schedule, we're only able to do maybe 1 or 2 walkthroughs a year, plus track 5 minutes. Plus come so having you come in hours. Once a month. It's getting more the guys and I getting look at buildings that
What's the feedback been from the business communities that you're contacting?
so far it's been good.
Good.
Because I'm in a real businesses that have never had us walk through usually I gotta explain a little bit what it's all about, why. But, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Paperwork I fill out. All that truck. There.
That's awesome. And this is, because to me, I'm like, this was kind of the business inspection in a simpler form to me is, because this is what I envision, like this, like, where are the hot spots, what needs to be saved and what can save
In a
seconds.
sense, I'm doing this more for the fire department and the guys, for the plan aspect of it. But in a sense, kind of like an inspection, I'm just not making corrections. Purely
Just document. Awesome. Thank you.
So this is all voluntary, correct? Which probably takes major trust on the business to let you come in and look at it. I don't know, just throwing it out there, is there a way to recognize that businesses are going above and beyond to making the community safer with these inspections, or to kind of recognize them for taking that leap of faith to allow us to come in and look at this stuff?
I guess I could, have that conversation.
At least putting it out on social media or something.
Especially if they're willing to share that information. I think that if they see, oh, my neighbor business did this, or my neighboring property did this, then maybe it's not so bad if I do this kind of, but if it's helping everybody, I think it's fantastic.
Do you share anything as far as, you got certifications, I had certifications, I mean, when we walked into a door, we had obligations to make corrective orders if we've seen those. This isn't the same, doing a fire pre-plan, and when I was active fire and we used to walk into places, it was kind of off the cuff and there wasn't anything getting rolled up. We would see things and suggest things. I don't want the city to be put liable, for, you go through and then somebody says, hey, there's a fire, then, hey, you should have seen it. So do you give them any disclaimers or anything when you're going in there that this is not replacing a full blown inspection? It's just,
I let them know that I'm not going to do it. But when I pointed it out. That's kind of been a mixed bag of feedback on that end. Some people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to get that taken care of right away.
well, when we talked about doing the building inspections originally on businesses, I remember that we got a lot of fire, a lot of backfire from a lot of. They didn't want anything that intrusive. They thought they could police themselves. And that's the main problem that a lot of towns have that have tried to start rental housing inspections and stuff. And I spoke at several communities around the area that are thinking about going into that program, and tried to and I heard a lot of people were really afraid of that. Even at that, do we really want to do this? Can't we? There's several of the towns said we'll just police ourselves. To me it was kind of like the fox watching the chicken coop. You're not going to get a really good program by doing it that way. I mean, it's not going to work. We found out it has worked, and I can honestly say that since 1998, we have not had one death in a rental property in Pine City, and I'll knock on my God that it doesn't happen. But I think our program has worked. Originally that I helped set up, and we've continued on with it. And I think it makes a big difference. I'm hoping that what he's doing will open up their thoughts to allowing it to be part of a regular function that he does, or that job does, to review these places to help them make sure that things are safe. And so I'm really pleased to hear that you're getting in more places. I don't want them to feel that if something would happen that they, you let them down or something, and I know it isn't what you're doing. I mean, that they're gonna say that
To
you should have caught that.
to that point, maybe we just need some kind of signature on disclaimer that you're only there to put together a pre-plan and not any kind of inspection of any kind.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever looked into it. I don't see any reason to, but I guess that's not a bad idea, and it also would reaffirm that we're not doing something that is considered. You know, you walk out of there and they say, "Well, we've had an inspection, we're just fine." Well, you really didn't have an inspection. You had a pre-plan visit.
It would probably protect them as much as it protected the city.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just worried for nothing, but I guess after so many years of doing this, I would be worried. Yes,
That's a good point.
I like to use it as a good education piece.
Oh, yeah.
I like to explain that the plans help with our ISO rating. Just like
that's a good
ISO rating do to help improve
their insurance. Yeah, that's a good thought. I'm glad you bring that up.
Perfect. All right, are there any other questions or comments from the committee or department reports?
Brock, I see the grass is dying up there by Shalene Park. It looks like the application is going pretty well, huh? So have you been getting much feedback up there, or no? Pretty positive? And the dredging went pretty good, it looks like.
Yeah, right.
I got a couple comments for Jason about the problems that we had with the communication from the sewer and the water facilities. There was a news story on tonight, or was it last night? It was, I think, in both nights. It's on my laptop news too. But there's several of the cities that were involved in this problem are trying to get together. I don't know how they're organizing this through the league or whatever, and trying to go to the legislature saying, we don't have the money to make our systems fail safe. We need help. And I didn't know if there was anything, if you had any conversations with like Senator Rarick or Representative Nelson, because I know I'm going to have conversations with them about it, but I didn't know if you had thought about that at all. To see if they got any thoughts, or are there on any committees that might be able to help us. I don't know. Is there something that we can do to try to keep this from happening again?
There is a lot of training coming out right now over it. Funding, I haven't seen necessarily any funding coming out saying that we're going to take care of this for you, or we're going to help give you money towards this. I don't doubt that something like that could happen, especially with them reimbursing us for some of the things that were attacked and ruined. But as of right now, I think us following up on some of these trainings would be number one, and about what we can do right now to protect ourselves, more than just sewer and water. Obviously, cyber attacks are coming through every which way. So right now, if we were to follow up on some of these trainings and put a little bit of effort into these, I think that would be a good step.
And also, can I throw it out there that I don't know that it necessarily would have prevented or solved the situation that happened, but it may be a good time to have our SCADA people talk to our IT people. I know historically they have been two separate systems, and our IT people are cybersecurity certified, all that kind of good stuff, can do all those watchdog things. So just to throw it out there, maybe if we have them have a communication, everybody the infrastructure could all be a little safer because of it.
I'd like to go one step further. I'd like to see you track this, what this is costing us. I'd like to see some kind of a totals at the end of it. Because my intention is to talk to our representatives. I think that's important. I think that's one of the jobs that we should do as council people, is to try to save our taxpayers money and find funds wherever we can find funds. So, these people always ask us, what can we do for you? Well, you know what? We need this help. We can't afford this. And if it's training money that we need, maybe we can get some agency to throw training money out, but if you can give us a list of what this is costing you as a department head, and then of course we'll be talking with your budget anyway, so that maybe is something that you wanna throw some money against, because it's probably something that we're gonna have to do in the future, and I think, Ken, I think you have an excellent idea about getting them together, but that's still gonna cost us money.
Right.
So, that's why I'm saying, I think it's the whole thing, we need to track this.
Don't we already include training in the budget for the different departments, or is it all under administration?
Oh, no, each budget.
Yeah, so it's already in there.
Well, it is, but that's training that we normally do. This is above and beyond. Now, this is stuff that people are thinking up to try to make our lives a lot happier, let's see if we can't screw up their sewer. I don't think anybody in Pine City would have liked it if things started bubbling out of the basement. I know I wouldn't have been very happy.
Well,
So-
if I can make, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. I want you
Please,
to.
everybody mind, all of our sewer is set up with manual,
Right.
floats as backup.
Right.
So even if you lose connection, you have time to get there and it can still be working just fine on its own. And then you go there and monitor. I mean, we had the same lift station back before SCADA was a thing, and we were able to make that work by checking the numbers every day to find out whether the pumps are working accurately. That's all we're going back to doing right now on this two lift station. And that's just because the parts are so scarce with everybody's going down all at once. It emptied out the warehouses and now, but we do have manual backups. We're not just solely relying on communication.
So does this checking that you have to do, is this after hours? Is this weekends that you normally wouldn't have to do this?
No, we wouldn't necessarily have to physically go out and do it, but we are checking daily, yes. So it is usually one on-call day, on the weekend.
Right. So the on-call person is being called up. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, they have a time window to come and check each morning.
Okay. So that isn't anything above and beyond what they normally do.
That is above on the weekend, yes.
Okay, well then that's what I'm talking about. That's dollars there. And that's what we have to worry about is dollars. So that's why I'm asking this. So I would like you to keep track of it.
Yeah, I already am
Well, I figured you probably would. You're always ahead of me.
trying.
I know you are. That's all I got.
Perfect. Any other questions or comments for the department? Right, hearing none, we'll move on to budget discussion. Item number 10.1, fire and life safety preliminary budget.
I gotta find it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Okay, I get the pleasure of breaking the ice for the preliminary budget talks.
Yeah.
With my sheet that I handed out to you tonight, you'll notice that my 2027 budget is very similar to my 2026 budget. Two of my larger line items, my professional services, my legal fees, they typically stay the same, just because I never know what I'm going to get into year to year. If I have a big project or a big property I have to deal with, it get pretty expensive. So this year, I haven't spent a whole lot into those items, but I have a couple properties that I could very easily spend that by the end of the year. So those kind of have stayed right there. Was that about a month ago? We came forward with our wish list. Actually came back with some quotes on the vehicle racking and then the improved decals with my vehicle. The pricing came back better than expected, and actually have the funds available in this year's budget, so I can actually move forward with that now. So I can totally remove that from the budget for next year. But the big thing I'm kind of looking for, I'm looking for council direction for on the proposed business inspection ordinance. This was talked about a couple months ago at a work session. It kind of got brought up again. This decision would have an impact on my budget for this upcoming year and for years to come. I'm currently paying 15% of the admin assistant wages and benefits out of my budget. This would most likely need to be increased if council chooses to move forward with the business inspection program. There is also potential for an additional position. This program would currently add 178 inspections and growing. To my, which would almost double my workload for inspections. You could accomplish this by either adding an additional inspector or bringing on someone to handle the complaints / ordinance compliance, which allow me more time to focus just solely on the fire inspection portion of it all. So what I'm asking you is, would council like me to bring my proposed business inspection ordinance to planning commission to start working out all the details on that? I kind of have the bones of that ordinance that I put together a couple years ago, so I could bring that back into planning and see how they want to structure it before we bring it back to council.
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor, and I know there's a lot of business owners that are probably gonna shake their fists at us, but I'll be the one that goes on record and says, if anything on that Fifth Street block, if there's any way you could prevent a fire from happening there, that whole block could disappear in a matter of hours if there was a catastrophic fire. So if there's anything that we can do to prevent that from happening, I think it's valid and worth its time.
Well, I think the initial start of it will be no different than what I went through with the rental inspection. And was that the first round was a lot of stuff found in a lot of places. The second round was stuff that people did on their own because their landlords didn't take very good observations of what was going on at their places. So as you went down the years, I got to the point where there was a lot of them. It was just like a walk through the park. Things were kept up. They knew I was coming. They knew what had to be done. They had experience of what had happened before. They had the pass sheets. I always provided them what I was looking for, what I had found before. And it seemed like they all, except for maybe a few, there's always a few that don't comply with anything. They were ready and they were done. I mean, it was easy. I think it'll be the same thing with businesses. Maybe not as easy just because of the size of the buildings compared to a residential home. But we had apartment buildings, and he's got apartment buildings now. So I mean, that are pretty big, and they're very vast, and they're very similar in problems that businesses have because they store a lot of certain supplies and that. So I think it'll start out very difficult. I agree with him that maybe some personnel shifting to certain things. Some of these complaints. Hopefully that gets better. I mean, I think the word gets out that we're going to do something about stuff, and that helps. I mean, I think if we didn't take care of some of these complaints around town, I think we'd have people saying, "Well, I can do it. They're going to do anything about it anyway." Well, I think we found out that you guys do, and it gets taken care of. So, and I'm pleasantly surprised when I get those. I mean, because if you're on this quick fix, whatever the heck it's called, you get a report. It comes back to you, and I really appreciate that. I like that, seeing what was done and what correspondence either Tabitha or Adam have made to these people, and the real telltale of it is that you see it when you drive by the place. You see, well, I guess it is, the grass is mowed. This is picked up and moved. So I think it'll get easier. The selling point has to be that this is not overly intrusive. This is safety, not just for them, but for their neighbors. And that's the important thing that they have to worry about.
So I do think it's something that we could hash out this fall if council is in agreement. But implementing it, are we looking at the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter, the fourth quarter of 2027?
I mean, that would all totally depend on how fast it moves through planning and council.
Nothing at council.
I don't want to make it feel like this, but force it on businesses either. I want them to buy into it too. So
I think part of your question is to try and add in enough money for a second inspector if the count goes way high. Are we going to sit down and prioritize locations that we're going to start for and work our way through them? If we implement it halfway through the year, but we plan for a full amount throughout the entirety year, at some point we got to look at truth in taxation and look at where we're applying it. So realistically, if we're going to roll it out in 27 on January 1, then
we should probably plan for that. If it's not gonna be until the end of, 2027, do we need to budget that in right away? I don't know. The admin fees, I could see that increasing. That part I would be okay with jumping up to 30% instead of an increase in your budget to accommodate for that, because I think you're gonna probably have a lot more admin trying to help you out with all that stuff going through. But I don't know about the other position, just since I don't know when we're gonna roll out the business improvement plan and say it goes into effect this day. So if that's something that we can come up with a proposed target date, I think would help us put into what we would see with that inspector. Now, we have a lot of ability to cut after we set it in September 30th, so we could throw it in the budget and then cut it throughout the fall, but it'd be nice to have some kind of target dates on when we might put that into effect, because it might just be something we have to cut from the budget.
In my mind, too, to your point of helping with complaints, is it maybe a part of planning's budget, and where planning is going with workload and where he's going with workload, does it make sense to come up with a compliance officer type position where complaints are being, maybe it leads to something cross-utilizable throughout the entire day.
The other thing I did notice, just at a glance, is that it looks like your code enforcement is a little overspent halfway through the year. And is that something that you see an increase in code enforcement? It seems like we're starting to get strides on actually following through and enforcing things. Should we be looking at jumping up that budget, because you've only asked for the same amount from 26 and 27?
So are you talking about the revenue line there?
Yeah.
So that, I believe is a credit, one that's in red.
Yep.
It's a previous year that credited in. So, yeah. That's another one you don't never know really how many citations you're gonna write. So. And this last year, I believe our citation fee went from 75 to 150, so he's gone up. And our goal is always voluntary compliance. You know, we kind of use the citation as our muscle in it, you know.
I think at some point, if we keep having inspectors, we're gonna go away from complaint driven and get into just full on policing and inspections. Especially if we're enforcing the business improvement plan, I would think.
My opinion, part of that's part of growing population and being prepared to continue to grow population. Just to have some of that, you know, because like we said earlier, what we do up here in these chairs, nothing moves fast. I think it's smart. Smart conversations to be talking about now.
If Tom was here, our fire chief, he could probably speak to this, but I think I'll speak to it and talk about how many business fires we had in the last 5 years, and some of them were pretty serious. And would we have caught that problem, you know, ahead of time? Most likely, on a lot of them, we would have caught it. The ones that I'm familiar with. So we know the difference, and like I said, I'll go back to the rentals. We've had rental fires, and some of them were accidental. We always have the elderly apartments and handicap apartments where people forget to take the boiling pan off the stove and they have a fire. But working with those people, I was able to get them to put extinguisher, these little canister extinguishers above the hood vents, and some of the stove, got them to convince them to buy stove with the new memories on them, where if the pan gets empty, it shuts the burner off, you know. So there, you know, some of that is what we do, is just to try to educate on, here's a safer way of handling this, because we're all going to get to that point in our lives when we can't remember whether we were boiling eggs or what we were boiling. And it's just part of getting old. And so we're going to have the same growing pains with business inspections. And I think we're going to, you know, save some money for a lot of people. And these, yeah, I think you made the big point about the ISO, and that is, I've been involved in several of those ISO insurance inspections, and they really put a lot of emphasis on inspections. That is very high on their list. That gets you a lot of points.
We missed the rating of a 3 in city limits by 3/100 of a point.
And what people need to understand
Inspections are an important part of that.
that would put us in the same boat as all the big boys down in the Twin Cities. We would have the same rating as them, and that these guys have a lot to be proud of. We have a lot to be proud of as far as our fire department. I mean, we have, they're good. They're darn good. And I know one of the biggest things I always found interesting was I get calls from when Tom wasn't around or whoever the fire chief was, from insurance people that were trying to set rates for people. They'd want to know, a lot of them want to know 10-8 times and 10-10 times. And 10-8 is when they leave, and 10-10 is when they get to the scene. And when I would tell them that, they would say, they can't be that fast. Well, you know what? I didn't write it. The sheriff's office wrote it. I'm sorry. It was right. Well, you guys are good. Well, yeah, I guess we are. I mean, there's sometimes we probably weren't so fast, but overall we were very fast and inefficient. So I think we have a lot to be proud of in this town. And I think adding what we do with inspections is just another plus. And I know there's a lot of other towns that mirrored us, and I think for a darn good reason they have.
Do you know when our next proposed ISO audit is, by chance?
Off the top of my head, I think it's every 5 years they come through.
They
We
don't
just had
have
that
to
done.
necessarily.
If I remember correct, it's gonna be before truck is delivered, but the ladder truck still counts towards it because of the order deletes, but it might be just before the ladder truck is delivered.
That's what Tom figures, yeah.
So we gotta get the business improvement plan in place before 2028. Our target date then?
28 or 29, I think is when the next one would be due.
Okay.
All right, any other budget questions for Adam?
The only request that I have, and this is just a request personally, is that I would ask that you spend every penny you can in your uniform account to get the uniform and safety equipment stuff that you can get this year, because this stuff is going up in price. Don't really ever advocate money, but uniforms and safety supplies, you can get it,
All right, so the council want me to bring that to planning? Is that
So I'll make a motion that you take the business improvement plan to planning. To look at implementation at some point in 2027.
I'll second that.
All right, we've got a motion from Kyle and a second by Dave. To bring the business improvement plan to planning and get it implemented by 2027. Any further discussion?
I have a question after this vote, I guess.
Sure. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
So to that point, if we're gonna implement it, do we wanna bring back before September 30th, forward the amount on how much we might need to increase the budget for a second inspector?
I think a lot of that will be determined too, like what planning decides, like how we want to implement it. Are we going to soft roll it out there? Are we only going to do certain occupancies? Are we going to do assemblies only? Are we going to do restaurants only? Are we going to do only places with sprinkler systems the first year? You know, depends on how this program comes out. So
I'm only throwing it out there because we can add it now, but after September 30th, our only options. We can't add it in. So if it's something that we might need another inspector in 27, then we should probably look at putting that in now. And if planning and you decide that it's just not going to work out the way we want in 2027, before 2027, we have the ability to cut it. But we can't add it in December if you come up with a good plan.
you want the option of the inspector / the other compliance officer position too, but
I guess
those would look like.
my opinion would be to ask for the world, and then we figure out if we can grant that.
Well, you do some of the, not assemblies, but you do some of the, you do anybody who has liquor. So, I mean, we do get a big portion of a lot of businesses, and to be honest, that's prevented probably a lot of fires right there, just taking care of that part of the equation. So we already do some of that stuff. It could be a possibility that we look at a community service officer like Sandstone has, and that program's worked out just fine for them. At the same time, I was their fire marshal and filling in there. So we both had separate jobs. I would take care of the fire code, and that officer would take care of all the other stuff, the dog barking and the fence disputes and all that stuff, and along with a lot of other city business that they would ever do. So there is other options.
Come back with options.
There you go.
Got it.
Perfect.
All right,
Talk
thank
to
you.
them and see what they do.
Preferably before September 30th.
All right, next up will be Laura with liquor store preliminary budget.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Evening.
So you should have my budget and a memo, I should say. The highlights for my 2027 proposed budget. This was an interesting one with the hopes that we would be in a new location by the middle of summer, January or July 1. I used 2025 numbers for the first half of the year because those numbers are solid. We had just gotten 2026 numbers for the first half of the year and they're like super comparable. So I went with 2025 numbers and used the same exact numbers for January through June, end of June 2027. Then from July 1 to December 31st, I used 2025 numbers and I did a 35% increase in sales. So with that, I did only a 30% increase in cost of goods, knowing that we would be able to buy better buys, so the cost should be less. Then there was a minimal increase in employee costs. Increases right now are just based on contract benefits that have been negotiated. The new ESST, the family leave requirements, have also been added to the proposed budget for 2027. I did put in additional $5,000 for seasonal employees if we need them. I expect that if we do go to a new location, we would start with the employees that we have, and we'll see how it goes first. I did a projected lease cost of $30,000 per month. That was added to the proposed budget. The actual cost is yet to be negotiated and will be based on the total cost in the term of the lease. That was the high end when in all of the discussions that we've had with Tommy Foster, 30,000 was the high end. So that's why that's the number I plugged in. I did put an additional $10,000 to be added to the advertising budget because we'd like to look at a billboard. I'm also looking into advertising dollars from people like Anheuser-Busch and Coors. If they were on the billboard, would they help with the costs? Costs are coming back at about anywhere from $800 to $1,200 a month, depending on where we be, but I would really like to target somewhere between Rock Creek and Pine City northbound. We might even be able to partner with some of the other retail that's in the location as well. That's always an option. The proposed budget still includes the $125,000 transfer. $95,000 of that goes into the Gen Fund, and $30,000 goes into the Fire Department Capital Fund. And then the last thing is any funds received from selling our current shelving, cooler, etc., may be used to pay down on the lease or the purchase of any new items for the new location. So with that, there is a black number at the very bottom. It's not very big, but that's always my goal, is to make sure that I put forward a budget that shows that we would be in the black. So do you have any questions?
I guess being in the black is definitely a positive thing without the negativity there. So
Right.
that might be a lot of wishful thinking.
You got that guy in the freezer with his hands. I'll put a sign in his
There you go.
hand. He's telling, want to buy a house? How about nice liquor?
There you go.
A couple questions that I have.
Yep.
Revenues first. Are you hearing anything in your MMBA or in your world about THC beverages and where that's headed? Because I know there's a drop. The law is supposed to change in November, and that's not very far away.
So I've heard two things. At the federal level, there is a new bill that is going forward that would include a federal tax on it so that the federal government will also get a cut of the money. And along with that is a proposal to move out to 2028 for them to be able to hash out all the details, because November is too soon. It was a knee-jerk move, and nobody was prepared that when they finally looked at the dollars and how it's going to affect the major farmers that have moved over to the different product. And now if that product goes away, those farms, those families lose their farms. It wasn't that they just decided one day they were going to just move over. It was months and months and years of planning, and now you're going to just stay there. So that's at the federal level. At the local level, I know that the MMBA and the MLBA have been meeting with OCM, which is the Office of Cannabis Management, about what's going to happen. And I know that there's been discussions that Minnesota is going to stay the way they are, and they are working with banks and insurance companies to be able to allow us to stay status quo as we are currently. So it looks like it's good on both ends. Will there be hiccups? Of course. Right now we're seeing a reduction in product that's being made because people are scared. I mean, even we have reduced some of the things that we're selling just because if the day does come, what do we do with all of it? We can't send it back because they can't take it back either. So we just have to destroy it. So we don't want to have a huge inventory that if that would happen, we'd be stuck with it. So had a conversation with one of our vendors today, and he said, I'll get you what I can, but just so you know. And I said, we totally understand. And even our customers understand that there's some stuff right now that's just not available. But
$274 million a year. Crazy.
yes, and it's only growing. It's, you know, and if there's a tax base, that's what both the federal and the local government, you know, the Minnesota government want to see, you know, be able to bring in some more money on the taxes.
So the MMBA track what this money that's coming in, this extra tax, what it's going for? Because I'm having a hell of a time finding that. Like,
so originally it was supposed to be, I don't remember the percentages off the top of my head, but a percentage of it was supposed to go to each county that had to govern or police the businesses that had them. Well, when the budget for 2026 went through Minnesota, all of that got taken away, and it's just going to the Minnesota General Fund. So there's no way to track it. You're not going to be able to track it.
well, that's what I can't find. I'm not getting any answers.
Nope.
When I look.
It just goes right into their gen fund. They took everything away from local cities and local counties because they needed the money.
Increase the percentage and.
Yep, and yes, and increase the percentage side.
You know, do people ask you that? Because I mean, when they buy it, they see that extra tax going on there. You tell them that? I mean, you should. I mean,
we don't get the question very often.
Yeah.
We don't get the question very often. But yes, when we do get questioned, just like Minnesota's alcohol tax is higher than anybody around us, Wisconsin, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Iowa, we tell them, yeah, we're almost at 10% for alcohol.
You're as tight as it gets, but like I said, just discussion points of remembering my career of opening restaurants. I personally feel that your office supplies line is low, and I also feel that your operating supplies line is low.
So my intention is I hope that the sales of the items that we sell from the current store, the shelving, the cooler, those fixtures will be able to
supplement that. Okay.
Yes.
Because yeah.
I agree. Otherwise they'd be way too low. We'd be sitting on cardboard boxes with crates.
Well, when you open a new location, like you think you have everything planned until you don't have that widget that you have to have right now.
Yes, that's my hope. My hope is that we'll have that extra money to.
And then the computer internet GIS support line was 9,000 for 26 and 7,500 for 27. Is that just where the rate is falling? Like, are we spending that much? Or?
I don't think you guys accounted for iCompass and BSNA.
So we'll have to look at that.
Okay.
iCompass and BSNA.
I also want to throw it out there, and it may be easier to build these in to each department's budget, especially with the potential of a new store. I know IT had some thoughts for upgrading to newer, more modern equipment. That's easier for them to manage. Maybe it's smart to reach out to them and get a quote for,
I already did all
if you
mine.
haven't already.
I did, I had to because we were crashing. So I just approved a bill for like $2,500 for that at the liquor store. So it was a little bit of a, because I wasn't prepared, but we had to have it. I mean, they worked a few days just trying to get us up and running. And then he's like, the one person came and said, it just needs to be rebuilt. And I'm like, okay, we can't go down. It was before the 4th and all of that. I'm like, we just can't go down. So do what you got to do. Get us up and running so that this isn't going to happen. So, yeah.
Before we do any kind of software updates, I'd like to have a really good plan this time and a timeline.
As far as my POS system, I've been talking with them as far as we've been with them since 2017. We would probably want to do one upgrade, but what we have, I think, is probably what we want to stay with. We like it. It works. There's one other vendor that's trying to convince me to do something else, and we'll talk about that later, but I think we'll probably stay with who we have, and they're willing to like lend us equipment so that we can have one store still open while we're starting to get the other store ready, so that it's just you close one on a Sunday afternoon and you open the other one on a Monday morning.
That's great. I just need to, the mayor's point, whatever we come up with.
Yes.
The software updates, I'd like to really have a very well articulated plan this time with a very broken down budget, timelines, and guarantees in place, and a contract.
You know, like
And the liquor store's a mess. If you open up the ceiling tiles, I'm sure there's years and years and years of CAD 5 and other stuff up there that is just up there. I don't know. That's my guess.
Can't confirm. Perfect. Any other questions for Laura?
The only questions that I have to do with utilities. If you gotten into like selecting potential equipment and HVAC units and things like that.
So in conversations with Tommy, he is collecting bids. He has a few more to collect. I have also collected some information from people through the MMBA so that when we sit together, I can be like, well, this is what these people paid. Why are we paying this? As far as utilities, he told me that obviously everything's going to be way more efficient than we're in right now, so they should be comparable.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. Like if we're in a new building with new compressor, everything.
Correct, because our
Hopefully that-
compressors are, some are 25 years old.
Well, and
Here's
some of those rooftop
Yes,
AC units, and
yes.
I think you could probably save a few thousand on that line. That's all.
That's why my repairs and maintenance line is super tiny too, because I hope to not have any repairs.
The landlords.
Right.
The one thing that I would say with that is you may increase that a little bit because new buildings have new paints too. So don't paint yourself into a corner where you're all of a sudden they're spending.
And I think some of that will depend on the lease condition
Lease
terms as well.
Yeah.
Who's responsible for what in the very beginning.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up will be planning.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Hello.
Hello.
Most of my stuff is staying somewhat the same. The wages and benefits I ultimately don't have control over. We did put on here the $5,000 in the capital line for the option of a shared vehicle. I really wasn't 100% sure on where the numbers should kind of go. I kind of looked at Adams a little bit, get an idea, because adding that in there, a gas and oil would have to be added in, a repairs and maintenance would have to be added in. My thought was if it doesn't go through, I would still ask to have a potential gas and oil line to help some of the departments that do go out and drive me around, and or the cost of using my vehicle as well to do some of the running. I'd kind of like to leave that there if the whole vehicle does get scrapped. I know it doesn't show that I use my safety supplies line item. I have used it. I do have my shoes. I do have my tall boots. I do have my vest. Everything as requested. So being I have that, I would ask that a uniform line item be placed on here. Meeting with developers and or on-site visits. I went with Brock to Shalene Park when we met. It was nice to have the actual Pine City logo shirt to represent our city. He was in it. I also wore that same thing to help him over the weekend. So I shrunk the safety supplies to add a uniform line item. So I just split it in half for 200 and 200. But other than that, not much has changed. I will have an enforcement revenue GL line item that we do need to add because as Adam was presenting, I do realize that he did the code enforcement that I did do for the planning side of things actually went to Adam. So that's gonna have to be added.
When you say 5,000 for a shared vehicle, is there another budget book that is also putting money towards a vehicle?
I believe Public Works and Administration.
Okay.
Would they put forward 5,000 a piece, or is?
I think that's where it's at is 5,000 a piece from each line, from each budget.
Doesn't give you much of a vehicle unless you have a pretty used vehicle, I would think.
I pick up something pretty nice for people. Adam, what did you pay for your rig? Was it like 7,600?
Can we get it on fleet deals? I don't know what the costs
I
are.
believe that was a state contract.
Oh my.
Okay. I mean, I know there's options that we could probably discuss with Tom, but I'm keeping track of what I actually use for mileage now, just see if it's feasible for planning to.
I think this is something that's years overdue. This is just my personal opinion, but in the wackadoodle world that we live in, and when you have assessors, I literally have friends that work at assessor departments that are going out in bulletproof vests with a pistol to some things that, I mean, it's crazy. And living in a small town, having a vehicle that is not recognizable as your own personal vehicle, for anyone on staff, I think is an insurance policy that, because what if, that's what burns me up. What if something happens? What if some wackadoodle followed you in your personal vehicle? And what, that not questions I want to answer for $15,000.
Right.
I just mean, do we need to bump it up?
Yeah.
When I used to go out and do enforcements, I went down and got a fire truck. Because you get a lot more respect when you have red lights and a siren. They don't, and the backup beeper really helps too. That gets all their attention when you back
So
up.
I do know it was also discussed at our wish list, possibly using a old public works vehicle or an old fire truck. So we just kind of put this together as I don't know.
So I do know what you're saying, Dave, but I have also heard the concerns that there's more than just the city's budget that's going to funding those fire trucks, and the concern is that it's being used for other city use. And I think in Adam's case, we might have gone away from that because we were concerned about that. So I like the idea of having a community vehicle for the different departments that's mobile, preferably a bigger local. Adam's got kind of a tiny little one. But I do like that idea. I just wonder if 5,000 per department might be a little bit low. Everybody's got their own opinion. I always worry about used vehicles because with used vehicles comes an unknown history, and they can say it's the greatest thing in the world, and maybe they miss something and it turns into a casting effect. Kind of like a new vehicle because you know what it's coming with and it's under warranty, but
Depreciation schedule.
right.
And this is at least from what I'm remembering, the vehicles that we used to, like the fleet Impalas or the fleet Jeeps that we've been getting at the county, they're not as expensive as you'd think they would be. They're not anywhere near as expensive as an Explorer kitted out for a squad car. So I think there are some, I would just like to throw it out there that I think it should be very important that this vehicle is four-wheel drive.
I was gonna ask for that as some snow plowing situations.
High ground clearance four-wheel drive would be my personal recommendation, but,
Well, not only that, but if there's job sites that you have to get out to that you know, don't wanna walk the 3/4 of a mile. Get that sucker in 4 rows.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think if we've got, maybe we can get some quotes for something.
My thought would be to double it in a short time, get some quotes or some estimates on it. And if it comes down less than what it is, then we can reduce that,
Yeah.
but we're not limiting ourselves with only having 15,000, if that makes sense. There could be other costs that we're not expecting.
So should each department double it then that intends to use this?
That would be my thought.
I think it makes sense.
I think so too.
Yeah,
And then
if
do you want new or do you want used quotes?
you could, I would say
Should give a
probably
lot of options.
both would be a good idea, but I'm also leaning towards the new. This is gonna be something that if we invest a little bit more money and we could be rocking and rolling it for 20 years if it's still reliable and still rolling. So
There are some used vehicles that are certified that you can get 5 to 10 year warranty.
Yep.
I mean, I think the more money that you have, the more options that will present themselves. That's just.
We qualify for state bid, right? I would guess.
Yeah.
So you can find out what they have to offer. There's, when you see state vehicles driving around, you see about everything on the book. I mean, there's everything out there, so that'll be something that'll work for you.
But I'll say it again, that this to me isn't a convenience item. This is safety insurance must in my book.
if for nothing else, if for no other reason than I don't want any city employee having to, Tabitha goes out to a job site and God forbid she hits a rock and all the transmission fluid leaks out or something like that. Well, I'd really much prefer that being a city vehicle if she's doing it on city time than her personal vehicle, but then she's got to wrestle how to get it to the shop, get it fixed, get to work, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah.
So that's,
So I don't want to be the one-off with a directive. Is the rest of the council on board with doubling Tabitha's budget and the other departments that have it in their budget so that it comes up to a $30,000 top end rather than a 15,000?
Yeah, I support that.
Yeah.
So again, that's till September 30th.
and it can always come down after that, but it can't go up after that. So.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Any other questions for Tabitha? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we will move on to committee updates. Gonna ask me first to remember all the way back to 2 weeks ago when the HRA meeting was held. Pretty short meeting. We discussed discussion was had on the thought of possible extension of the HRA's portion of the loan to the Lakeside Housing Complex. HRA has a very strong opinion of wanting to work closely with EDA so that one doesn't say yes and one doesn't say no, and everybody's on the same page going forward together. Strategic plan. We had a copy of the current strategic plan that expired in 25. Getting some information moving forward with writing that. Very briefly chatted about the 2027 budget. And that was about it. Discussed the foundation repair options if grant funding is not available and how we would begin the conversations of how we would phase out the repair approach to the current HRA building if we shouldn't get awarded this grant, and how do we move forward from there? There was also discussion on the Section 18 versus RAD conversion. Still in the very early phases of that, because we really can't do anything with that until building is fixed either way. So we've got some time to think through that. I think that's really all I have for HRA. Of course, I don't have my notes from that meeting, so and it was before the fair, and I lived 17 lives since then. So I think that's all I have for HRA. Anybody have any questions for me? Perfect. Then we'll move on to EDA.
We talked about financials. EDA also had a conversation about the Woodside housing loan. There's a subcommittee of Josh Larch, Mark Iveland, and Chad Fowler that have been put together to evaluate what that looks like, what city policy allows, just to kind of come up with a framework to move forward. City administrator created a worksheet for us for strategic planning as well, which is wonderful because EDA as well is not behind, it's time to update and figure out how the EDA is going to work best for the community in the coming years. There was some talk about increasing the RLF max from 50,000 to 200,000. And the reason for that is there's been a lot of conversation at many different meetings about $50,000 for somebody who's trying to start a business just next to peanuts anymore. And what can we do as an authority to try to continue to attract businesses and offer capital in different ways? It was a robust conversation. Be coming back to it. There's some paperwork that people are looking for from 2023. Yeah, I think that was it, right? We got our budget book and Economic Development Authority CD resolution. I'm not even sure how to describe it. There's a resolution the EDA wants to put together so that the EDA can move the CDs without any, they could accept council approval or
could roll it, or again, I've lived 17 lives since then.
It would officers of the EDA who are currently authorized by board resolution to sign financial instruments on behalf of the EDA are hereby authorized to manage certificates of deposit held in the name of the Pine City Economic Development Authority, including the authority to renew existing certificates of deposit upon maturity, including at different terms, rates, or maturities, add additional EDA funds to a renewing certificate of deposit or into a new certificate of deposit, purchase new certificates of deposit at qualified financial institutions, transfer or move funds from maturing or redeemed certificates of deposit to other authorized financial institutions for reinvestment and certificates of deposit, and execute all documents necessary to carry out these actions. The goal, if I screw this up, I'm sorry, but the goal of the EDA is they're trying to get into having laddering CDs, where they're laddered every 6 months or whatever the case may be. And the thought was that it's too much work, or it's a cumbersome amount of work to have an EDA meeting, to have approved minutes, to get it approved, to then move, and that's what this resolution is. Did I kill that?
I feel like that's a good summary.
Okay. So that's on the table. I don't know where that's going to go, if that's coming to council.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of lived through the current, and it is kind of, I will say it has been a little bit cumbersome, especially if we're getting into a point where rates are changing and they need to make a decision. We ran into an issue this spring where there was a lower rate at one financial institution and there wasn't the current financial institution, so we had to cash out that CD, move it to the other financial institution and invest it there. And through the need for minutes and things like that, I think that's when we had to have the special meeting to approve the minutes. Otherwise, we couldn't open the new CD. So we're not saying that, and this is my opinion, we're not saying anywhere that you can cash this money out and spend it on a project. It's just we're giving them the authority to, if this CD is expiring at Bank A and Bank B, which is already recognized as a bank the city does business with, has a better interest rate on that CD, we're doing our due diligence to make sure that we're getting the best return on our investment, especially being it's taxpayer dollars.
Are any of the CDs that we have, I know we're pretty heavy on financial establishment personnel. Are any of those CDs invested into any of those establishments?
Yes,
Yes.
all of them.
Does that,
Well, not all of them.
does that create a conflict where it's better to have a lot more cumbersome paper trail for transparency, or does it open us up for concerns of conflict of interest?
At this point in time, what we've seen is, if the individuals that are working at the financial institution where the CD is held have been abstaining from vote and conversation. Right now, our people that are the signers are one. I guess the treasurer is an employee at one of those organizations. The president and vice president and secretary are all not employed by a financial institution, so they would have no bias. But I guess there could be, but does a treasurer sign for a CD, or is that just? So it's just the president and one other person that would sign. Or three signers as the president, vice president, and CA. Okay. And again, it doesn't give the option to hit the cash out button and go buy the new Lexus. It's just we're going to move it from Stearns to Franzen because Franzen gave us 3.5% versus Stearns is giving us 3%, or vice versa. But the goal is to have everything laddered to a point where, I think, like Dan said earlier, that should we ever need to pull into those every 3 to 6 months, one of those is expiring, we could pull that money out and invest it.
My counter was that if we're doing an effective job of managing our assets, that CDs they're not sneaking up on you. 6 weeks beforehand, are you going to renew it at this place? Yeah, no, okay, then you have a meeting for minutes and up next. I feel like, again, just my opinion, I feel the way that it's set up now, to Mr. Palmer's point, is a strong check and balance to keep any even perceived conflicts of interest.
If it's streamlined to make it easier to ladder it, is it going to make it more difficult to pull money out to use it for projects, or is it going to be conveniently tied up where we might need?
We'd still need a vote of we have to go through the EDA and then through council to pull money out for a project.
I like this process.
I think there's a lot to think about. And a lot of work that still needs to be put into it. But okay, we'll move on from there. Planning Commission. I was absent there, so Dan.
We appointed Annette Weaver as the chair of the Planning Commission. She was nominated. She's really excited about it. She ran the meeting and did a great job. We discussed a little bit more about data centers, bringing it back to the August meeting to help continue to define what a data center is, because most of the time when people are hearing data centers, they're thinking 100 to 300,000 square foot, big monstrous concrete buildings, and that's not typically what a data center is, but just continuing down that conversation. Manufacturing home ordinances, we actually had Jake Lambert from JD Manufactured Homes came and gave a presentation. Do you have these on, or did he just have paper copies?
Just paper copies.
Okay. If you guys want, I can scan these in and send them to you, but it's just some specs that he brought on some of the manufactured homes. Really interesting, actually. Garage sales ordinances, we talked about. Planning, TEP is looking into other cities' ordinances. It was kind of funny, we talked about the golf carts recreational motorized vehicle ordinance. That was there's a lot, people are all on the same page about we've got to do something to fix the safety. Set public hearings for next month. Oh, just gonna get 300 first. That's awesome. Because what we have, Shoreland.
Shoreland did not move
No.
forward to public hearing.
Okay.
Only the nuisance ordinance and trimming trees and grass.
Grass and tree. Okay,
Yep,
so,
so there's only 2, but she's gonna get 3 in September.
awesome. So 2 public hearings coming up, and then that was it.
Now you have me intrigued. What's the trimming trees ordinance? Is that like over sidewalks or
Yeah,
around corners and stuff?
yeah. They're on the planning agenda.
I try not to interfere.
Good answer.
All right, any other questions or comments about planning?
To the deputy's point on what he mentioned about 15 plus for e-bikes, is that, and the ordinance we were looking at was 16 plus, I believe, or with a state ID or driver's license. Now we're getting less restrictive than what state statute is. It makes me wonder if we should just scrap what we were coming up with an ordinance and just fully align with the state.
I did
With speaking with the deputies that I have spoke with, one being an investigator as well, he sent me their state law and they highly recommend we just cite it, state that our ordinance is to follow Minnesota state statute, blah, 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 with all amendments. So as long as the state keeps updating, then we're automatically covered by it.
That sounds great.
Well, you gotta word it with all current, or, because we did that with the fire code, so we wouldn't have to adopt the fire
Yeah,
code.
he doesn't want us to go and go
Yeah.
copy and paste word for word what they have, because if that
Yeah.
changes,
Yeah.
then that throws our ordinance out of whack. He wants to cite the ordinance number or the state
most-
statute with all amendments.
Most
Was the
current.
biggest thing.
I dug into that very briefly too, and it sounded like if we enacted an ordinance like that in some situations that deviated from what the state's saying, we could open ourselves up to a lawsuit. And
Correct.
We would lose.
Right, that's why they just highly recommend that we cite the exact statutes, which they sent me, with all amendments. Make sure that they were very clear on that.
Well, our prosecution is a county prosecutor, so it makes sense.
Right.
'Cause that's what he used.
So I guess, do you want the planning commission to keep hashing out that portion, or should we just bring it back to a council meeting for approval to adopt state statute with all current amendments? Language.
I guess I'll throw it out there. The one thing that I had brought it forward originally as a golf cart ordinance,
Correct.
because there is no ordinance around
And
driving
there
a
is no
golf
state
cart,
law on golf carts.
and
So
there's
that
no
was the
state
only
law, so it's
part.
figuring that out to, so I would personally like to see that portion brought back, but I think the rest of it for sure, we just go. with
I
what
mean,
the
we
state
can name
says.
it the one and then just go, all of these apply to these state statutes. And then add in section whatever for golf carts. There's no real state statutes for golf carts. I tried.
Planning's busy lately, it seems like, so.
All right, any other follow-up from planning? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to Public Works Committee.
Well, we had a great session. It was, the first thing we talked about was brought forward by Jason was discussion, removing a couple parcels from the list of properties off for sale, and I'll let Jason explain where the properties are, and then we'll go on from there. But there's two properties that, one was the old gun range and one was the next one attached to it.
Hello, council. So the properties that I'm talking about are directly south of the ponds and from Public Works itself. Those parcels used to, from my understanding, was an airstrip and a gun range. They have been listed for sale for quite some time. Every person that goes to buy the property finds out the stipulations with the contamination from the gun range, and we don't hear anything from there. As a growing city, as a public works, a lot of cities end up selling property. They sell and sell and sell, and public works doesn't have room to expand. Not that I'm asking to expand buildings, but having space available for emergencies is very important. If we ever have a tornado come through and the yard waste site gets overwhelmed, we would have a space to provide for dumping until they can catch up. Also, if ever, let's say EAB is coming, Emerald Ash Board, it is confirmed in Pine County, Pine City, and I have emails from DNR on that as well. So we are having to come up with a plan on how we are going to address that, which is going to require space. Granted, the recycle yard will take the smaller brush as of right now, but they don't take over a certain size limit. Is that going to fall on us? Most likely. And how are we going to dispose of that material? I've dealt with that both at Maple Grove and Lino Lakes, and I can feel confident that we can come up with a plan for that, but that is also going to take time and space. If you ever drive into where we pile our sweepings, we barely can turn around in there because it's such a tight quarters. I would like to address that sweepings pile, which the pollution control agencies are starting to crack down on the smaller cities. They're cracked down on the bigger ones, and they're getting to the smaller ones on how they manage their sweepings piles. There are ways, if you properly test it and screen it, you can utilize most of that material and discard a lot of the waste that you screen out, and you could create a berm with it or whatnot. My proposal would be from that driveway going through the center of that red parcel, would be to create a berm along the road, a small mowable berm, just to, after we go through the proper steps with the sweepings pile, if we're allowed this, and then create and grade so we get proper drainage and create a proper draining site. And that way we can have stockpiles for material as we need. And then all that space to the east would be, we could see plant natural prairie grass. I've already eliminated a big portion of that by, instead of keeping it all mowed, we just mow a perimeter around, and it's for conservation, and we can plant natural prairie grass, which I understand comes with maintenance, but I am well versed in maintaining natural prairie grass. Just options. I could keep going on things that we could utilize that land for without having to change, without having to ruin the top layer, which would get into the contaminated soil. So technically we wouldn't have to do anything at this point for the contamination, as long as we're not affecting the underneath the soil.
Thanks, Jason. And I think the main point was the committee felt the same way as Jason was talking, that it is a benefit for us to keep this. The dollars that we would make off this property are probably minimal compared to what it would cost us if we had to go out and find property to do what he just explained to you. So the feelings from the committee were that we would endorse this back to the council and let the council make the decision.
I do have a question. So there was a state grant used to clean up that property, and there were some stipulations on what had to be done with that grant. I believe you had to have 7 employees hired if you were gonna do anything with it. How is that gonna affect what you're proposing here?
So the only thing I have been told is when I was there for one of the sales for the property, and they were told that if they were to put a, how was it worded, like a building on without disturbing the lower soil, you wouldn't have to do anything to that soil. As long as you're not affecting below.
Remediate,
Pardon?
remediate.
Remediate, okay.
Serving.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know all the proper words and everything, and I wasn't a part.
Yeah, there was part of that, but there was also other stipulations with the state grant that had to be applied to that property.
This hasn't been done yet. It's eligible for the deed cleanup grant with prospective job creation and retention. So there is a RAP report that was approved by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, should anybody ever buy it.
Right.
So as of right now, as long as this top is not disturbed absolutely at all, that topsoil is not disturbed, it's fine to stay the way it is.
And we're positive because there was different information 4 years ago presented to the council regarding that subject. That state grant was utilized.
Just says eligible for deed cleanup grant with prospective job creation retention. That is all that is on our city's website as well.
Okay.
I guess I'll throw it out there too, and I don't know if this is necessarily the time for this discussion, but I get emails, and I know that's nibbles at the fish hook, right? An email or so-and-so might be interested, or someone might be interested in this lot. Those are like 2 of the last 4 remaining lots in our industrial park, so I really would hate to permanently say not for sale. Personal opinion, if it was 1, I can swallow that pill, but should we get another manufacturing job that's going to create 80 to 100 jobs that's willing to work through and pour a slab and put a big building down that's big enough, in my opinion,
Gonna do that.
in my opinion, it's worth hanging on to.
It's 3 acres apiece.
I mean, how big is that compared to Ascot or?
What he's talking about, putting down prairie grass on one side and a dumping site on the other, correct? So utilizing all 7 acres.
Well, honestly, the prairie grass would just be for conservation in the meantime until we possibly need to use the land for an emergency purpose.
Well, or the tree disposals, if we get stuck with that.
I would caution you on tree disposal because it comes down to having a tree inspector for the city, and that takes on a liability side. And I believe Lionel Lakes and Maple Grove are all over the 5,000 population limit, which gets into requiring a city forester and not requiring a city forester that holds those credentials. We're kind of falling under the wing that if we don't have a city forester, we might be able to turn a blind eye to a high-risk tree that's in a park. But if we are going to start implementing that, then there's probably going to be a lot of trees that we have to look at in the cemetery and the parks for liability. And if we don't identify that, are we going to open ourselves up to liability? Sure. So I like the EAB thing, but I want to take what the DNR tells us with a grain of salt, because in their mind, they could have us do everything, but I don't know that that's necessarily a benefit for us right off the bat. But I appreciate the thought.
I think it's a great idea. I think for what you have thought now, but even with the growth piece, if you need a spot real quick, you could have a spot real quick. If you had to cap it with something like a recycled concrete or asphalt to be able to use it in the future, but have to be prairie grass. I agree with the mayor's point about industry, but at the same time, what you're saying is once that land's gone, then you're satelliting public works, if you will, because you're going to have part of it over here, and you're going to have part of it over here, and you're going to have part of it over here. And how long is this property been for sale? 10 years? Longer than that.
My whole life.
It's been there for a lot of years, Dan. A lot of years. And we do have land around the corner from the best bus garage that is city property. And so we do have more land than just that. And then we also have the land that we haven't developed yet. So we're not out of the land.
I just wanted to throw it out there as a cautionary, we've had the discussion at like EDA for, we really want to develop the Orbis property into be more industrial property with a development sitting in the middle of it. So I'm not trying to ruffle anybody's feathers. I just want to make sure that we're very certain in this, that before we make a final determination.
The next thing we talked about was discussion of constructing a concrete storage pad on the cemetery or at the cemetery for dirt storage. And I don't know if you got a picture of that on there at all.
Can pull up the
And bring that up. And Jason,
That'll be a pretty poor aerial view. I do have a picture on my phone that we didn't get on here, but if you look at where, let's see, it basically the farthest western part of that cemetery, we have a dumping site where we have our backfill for graves and we have the black dirt pile. We have a couple Jersey barriers with a divider with just grass overgrown. And my proposal would be to put in a concrete slab. That way we are not digging down into the ground, and that's going to help keep weeds from coming up from, granted on the piles, weeds would still come up, but you cover them with a tarp and that blocks the sunlight, and then you have clean piles. But having a concrete pad, my thought was having it wide enough, and then you have decorative block. They make like retaining wall block that is 2 feet by 2 feet by 4 feet, and one side is stamped concrete, and you stack those 3 tall and then have a divider in the middle, and it would look a lot cleaner. Just a proposal. I have, looking back the last few years, there hasn't been much added in other than some small decorative things that Brock did a great job on. I would like to kind of continue that with the forgotten back corner.
Do you run into any concerns with impervious soil or hard runoff right next to a wetland?
We're going to be pulling it back away from the edge, so if anything it would, but I believe that was outside of the wetland area where we shouldn't have any issue.
Okay. Good idea.
so I don't know, where do we go with this? Do we have you put this on your budget for next year, or what were you thinking?
My proposal is I'm asked 3 contractors, concrete contractors for a bid on just the pad for this year. And I already have the pricing for the block that from one, and I can keep looking, that was just one that I ran into and just sparked the idea of it. And I just happened to ask them what the price was at that point in time. I can ask around for comparables. So I'm not just going off of one person, but that could be a future step, is the actual sides and the divider.
That would be something really cool to have before September 30th, if you knew.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be good. We'd like to see that. Okay. Well, that was the second part of what we talked about. We had some discussion with the people there, the president, the committee there, about the history of public works, and that went really well. We talked about replacing the committee chair, which we did. Frank Wilja is now the committee chair of public works. The next thing we talked about was the update on the truck route signs, and I don't know if you want to allude to where they are, Jason.
Yeah, so all that previous map where the truck route signs were put up, we have up. Granted, we're getting complaints that they are still kind of outskirting, and we met with Tabitha and just yesterday. So I haven't gotten a chance to price those out, but I'm going to get some pictures of the spots and propose it with planning. And it would just be adding, I think, was it 4 signs?
Thanks, 4 more signs.
So I haven't gotten on site yet to see if we have existing posts and whatnot that we could just put the signs on, or where we would have to add signposts. But it's a possibility that we want to look into.
I think it's important to note that a lot of the trucking companies are, with the help from Laura at the liquor store and other people, other staff members, telling some of these contractors or truckers not to go there. I do still see them. I seen one on Saturday sitting up on the garage roof having lunch with my granddaughter and my wife. And I watched the truck drive away from there and drive down the city street. No reason to do that. Could have just well went on the truck route, but they didn't. And it's happening, and I've got other ones that I've called in, and the staff has done a great job of contacting them and educating them. I mean, so, and that's what we want to do. We don't want to start writing tickets if we don't have to. I think it's just going to take a while for them to understand that we don't want them driving through our neighborhoods, wrecking our streets, and that's what it does with these heavy loads that they're hauling. So I think that's working out pretty good. Other than that, we talked a little bit about the CUP with the co-op and the Frericks that have the greenhouse, and there's some gray area in that yet. I'm not sure if we've gotten all the information on that back. If we're going to talk about it again, I guess we'll have to look at that when we put the agenda together coming up. And then with the last thing we talked about was the snowplow policy, and Jason and his staff are working on that, and they'll be presenting that back to us on the next meeting.
On the next August meeting or the next public?
No, next public works meeting, excuse me.
Perfect.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments about public works? Hearing none, we'll move on to 11.2, current openings of committees, and it appears as though we have an applicant.
We do, and she's not here tonight. However, she also has not attended any, so with council's permission, I'll just reach out to her and ask her to attend these and see if she has a choice of one over the other, because I've not seen her at any meeting, so it would be good for her to attend and then have her come back.
Perfect. Looks like evening is a better availability, so that kind of falls more into the planning side of things, I would say, but that's yeah, she can attend a meeting and report back. Still wants to dive in, that's fantastic.
Okay, thank you.
Number 12.1 then, schedule work session to discuss township GPA study.
This was carried over from a previous agenda that didn't get addressed, so I don't know if this is something you still want to.
Well, I guess I still want to. I think it's important. I've had conversations. I've had several township officers call me and ask me certain questions about it, and ask me what we got out of this study. I told them we haven't talked about it yet, so I wasn't going to say anything.
Joint powers agreement.
And yeah, and so I don't know. I guess yeah, we know that would probably be a better, the JPA, the joint powers agreement.
For me, I am not opposed to a work session for a JPA study, but my opinion and the feedback that I'm getting, I think that we should focus on the goals that we set as a council at our special work session for fire in our community. And I think that if we're going to spend any time talking about a JPA, that the JPA should be the one that we're working on with Sandstone and Hinckley, and that's where our efforts would be focused. But that's just the feedback that I've received.
I would have to agree, and I say that because one of the powers has pretty much established a different routine. So I don't know that they would even be part of that conversation, but I think the concern is was there anything outlined in that study that could be an area that we could improve upon to provide a better service? I hope that's the way that we look at it, not that we're going to keep bringing it back to try and establish what was presented as the study, especially now that one of those partners has kind of left the building, so to speak.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to. It's been a minute, but I think it would be good to go through the study and see how we can use that to improve our current.
I don't think there's any chance that we're going to go back and try to make this, the same organization come together. It's not going to happen. I think I agree with you, Guy. I think the discussions that we're in right now make the most sense, and probably will make the most sense when we're all done with this. But I think it's important because I think there's a few, concerns out there that, there was a lot of money spent and a lot of time spent, probably more time than money, because we did get grant money for this, most of it. I think our portion was very relatively small, but a few $1,000s. But I think the bottom line was they felt they put a lot of time into this. They aren't going to be a part of this study. This is just us to look at what the study showed and whether or not we find any points in the study that would benefit our fire department. I wish Mr. Miller was here tonight so he could probably allude to maybe if he has any positive thoughts about what the study showed. I think there was a lot of disappointment, and I was one of them, that there was things in the study that I felt were, mislabeled, there's a lot of misinformation. I mean, it was, I'm sure glad we didn't pay the full price for this, because I think that would have been horrible, but
It's a challenge to say that it was mislabeled, because those concerns were brought up and it continued down the exact same path, the entire way. And I like the fact that you're talking that this would be a discussion with us, because I don't want to give out the impression that we're going to implement what was provided in the study, because I think we can all agree that there was some disappointment with the study. But I do think that there's tidbits in the study, like a medical response and outbuildings or substations. But I want to put out the disclaimer that to implement that stuff, there's also going to be a cost increase. And I think there's still some thought process that this joint powers agreement is going to somehow significantly reduce cost. And everything that it outlined is that there's a significant increase in cost on the city residents. I don't know that there's some kind of disconnection there with what the expectation is compared to, I guess, my expectation of providing that for very minimal gain.
For me, it's on the record that the information contained in that JPA study is 100% subjective. So I have a hard time making decisions from subjective information. That's just not my
But there is parts as far as responding to medical calls or outstations or improving waterways or fire equipment that I think that we could pull out and look at when we have our discussions with Sandstone and Hinkley on how that might work with bigger entities that can bring more resources to the table with a very minimal increase, as opposed to what was outlined with the townships.
Well, and I agree with you. I mean, I personally could pull all that out of there if I wanted to. I think I've got enough expertise in that field that I think I could do that, along with the help from our fire chief. But I don't think I want to be the only one doing it. I don't want the information to come just from me. I think it needs to come from the entire council. And I don't think we're talking about a long session. I think I'd be happy to go through it and have the fire chief go through it and just bring out what I think are the main points and go over those. And if everybody gets a copy of the whole report, which I think you did anyway originally, I think you all got the copy of it, then you can add if you see something that we forgot. But I would think in 2 hours maybe would be the max, maybe an hour we can get through it, and then take that, because I'm one of the people that go through the discussions with Hinkley, Sandstone, and Pine City. So I'd be happy to do with Marcy and whoever else goes. We can have two without calling a meeting. And then, take that information and bring it to the table with the discussions that are right now, as long as everybody understands, this is purely informational. When we go to these tables, we're talking about things that we think would make things better for everybody. We don't make commitments. We don't make plans. It's all about what all of our towns and all of us our small towns are going through a lot of the same problems, a lot of issues, and it has to do with money.
And I like the idea of the council coming up with ideas. I think that the fire chief has probably hashed out that study.
Oh yeah.
Like crazy. But if we want to come up with things that we want to see improvements, and then sit down and have a meeting, But I'm not sure if directing the fire chief to go through it again for probably, what's the 100th time?
Well, I don't think he'll have to. I think he could probably write this out in his sleep. I mean, I think he's looked at it enough, and he was the main person that really tore the thing apart and tried to correct a lot of it, which never got corrected, even though he gave them the right information. So,
Do we want to try and set a meeting now, or do we want
I would propose that we wait and we set a meeting after our August 19th meeting.
Okay.
Would be just my idea, just we can keep it as an agenda item that we can keep it moving forward, but let's get everybody.
well, we got a few irons in the fire, but I
Yeah.
don't want it left. I mean, I think we need to put some, just was phenomenal, finish it. I mean, whatever, what is the word I'm trying to find?
See it through.
There you go. I love staff. They help me with these words, but I think that we need to see it through. I really do. And there's people that expect that, and I haven't made any commitments to anybody that I've talked to, but they all say we would really like to see you guys look at this and see what you think. We didn't make any comments when we made the statement that we weren't going to make any comments. We just read off what the council had said the decision was as far as being a part of the study.
I'm pretty sure we made some comments. I made some comments in the council meeting about what I thought about the study, so.
Well, I know, but I when we were together with the committee out there, when I was the committee out there, we were pretty flat with what we said. We just.
Okay, we'll bring it to the next agenda.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to councilor concerns. First one, Councilor Hill, you had a comment about the signs in the right of way.
Oh, it's my favorite subject when I'm not at home doing nothing. Yeah, I see that a lot of them are getting picked up. Anthony buys houses though by the holiday. Is that gun gone or am I?
Yes.
I really am. When I seen for so long, I was getting ready.
Not buying houses over there?
I don't know how many houses Anthony bought, but he had a sign there for quite a long time. My main point to the staff is this. When I was doing it back in the days that I did that, it was one of my jobs. What I found is if you keep those signs off the right of way, eventually they don't come and put them there. What gives these guys the incentive, and I've talked to people that do this for a living, that was one of the things I did when we were trying to stop a lot of this. And they just said, well, we go to the town and if everybody else is putting them up, we put them up. And the only way you're going to stop it is if they don't see them. And it makes our corners and our town look ugly. And also the biggest reason I don't like it is because I'm sitting here trying to protect our local businesses. And these people don't need somebody else competing for the dollars that they try to get. And that's what we have to stop. You know, the garage sale signs and stuff like that, we all understand that. And they go away fairly fast. But these people, they plug them in everywhere. And they compete with every business that we have in town. And
That's capitalism.
that's exactly what yeah, but it also is unfair because they pay no taxes here. Don't we have a sign ordinance right away?
Yes, we work very hard to try to keep them down. It's just trying to
The actual act of
Get
taking them down.
out and
Like,
Do they just put them in the right of way, or do they need the property owner's approval to put them into their right of way?
they're just putting them wherever they feel willy-nilly. The planning commission meeting, I showed up here and there's one sitting in our yard here. Like, it's just willy-nilly.
They just stick them wherever they want.
Getting the chance to drive all the way around the city between Adam and
We should just call them up and get their address and then send them a bill for violating the ordinance. But
I have as high as sometimes 40 to 50 I would pick up.
we got a pretty healthy stack at City Hall.
Now they don't come, most of them won't come to get them. They won't come. They don't want nothing. Because they're all stuck in by people get paid. They go from Pine City to Hinkley to Sandstone. They go right down the road and they just stick them in everywhere. And, but if they don't see them there, they tend not to. And some of them have told me that. But the only way you can stop this is just keep them off the street. Well, whatever. Just one of my little pet peeves. I just hate.
All right, next up, sewer rates was added to council.
So nice timing because tomorrow at 10, we're meeting in the fire hall with, Tabitha will be running the audio. Lisa and I will be there. I believe Jason's coming too, and the 3 townships have been invited. Jason from, Ellers will be present to answer any questions. Currently, the 3 townships are paying the bill they believe is their rate. So they are all accruing a late fee. They have agreed that if they're found that they're wrong, they will be paying, but late fees are being accrued. The meeting's tomorrow, and I'm hoping that they'll see that this wasn't just a guesstimate. There were formulas used. Initially, their argument was that the contract only was for the sewer ponds. But with legal review of the contract, and it's just clear, it is the entire wastewater facility and not just the ponds. So that's where the calculation is coming through. I'm hopeful that Jason will be able to explain this to them. And
So I guess, is this something that we could keep on maybe the second agenda, just to keep revisiting for updates?
because there hasn't been anything to update because we were trying to get this meeting organized for about a month with summer vacations and.
I guess my only point is that it's frustrating because I think we set this amount back in April. To find out that they're not paying the rate and that we're acquiring fees. If they decide to disregard whatever happens at tomorrow's meeting, and I'm hoping that it goes really positive. What is council's, objective gonna be here? Are we just gonna let it go, or are we gonna come up with a different?
There's not a shut off, so that's not even really an option.
Get a hose call.
I guess,
Want to lay it right down?
Bunch of rags.
Yeah.
if there can't be an agreement reached, then I guess we would need to speak with legal and see what our next steps would have to be.
Give me an excavator and a bunch of test balls, stuff won't move.
Oh, yes, it's accessible.
Yes, we can.
Yep. Well, it would be assessed anyways. That would happen regardless.
You mean assessing the town hall itself? and
Yeah,
having
you
the
can
taxpayers pay for it?
Yep, we would assess them.
I don't think it'll come to that. I think they just want a full explanation, and I think Ellers can give it to them.
I'm hopeful.
But can we keep it on the
Yep.
agenda just so we can get updates, so it doesn't fall out?
Well, if council, anybody in the council wants to go, you could go. It's an open meeting.
Yeah, I don't think, my presence is always inspiring to a lot of the townships, so.
But I'm planning on going. I think I'm just gonna go there for informational. I wanna hear what they have to say, so I know what their feelings are. Makes it a lot easier when you're making a decision. I'm not gonna interject anything.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Right, next up, mayor's report, nothing much tonight, just been a busy couple weeks with county fairs, so, I was a little, I'll speak frankly and say I was a little disappointed at the, interactions at the end of the last council meeting. I appreciate everybody keeping their cool and keeping calm tonight, and I hope that we can continue that through the remainder of my term. Being said, that's all I've got.
Well, I don't quite understand.
Shouting at city staff is not appropriate. Shouting between ourselves, fine. You can yell at me, you can shout at me, you can raise your voice
I
at
don't
me.
think there was any shouting. I think
I
there
would
was
disagree.
some
I think we can keep it at that. I'll have my opinion, you can have your opinion. But I appreciate everyone's professionalism tonight, and I hope we can keep going with that. Moving forward, then looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Dave. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second by Kyle. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Now I got more paper.
Yeah. I love paper. I put on my other paper. I got all my budget stuff smeared out on the table.